turned a chilling and sharp hostility, reminiscent of a profound, frigid abyss. To his astonishment, he, who had concealed himself using the laws of space, had been detected, something even Fushi and Nuwa, along with the other formidable beings, had failed to achieve. Before he could fully grasp the situation, a cacophony of howling winds erupted around him. An ice dragon emerged from the realm of snow and ice, its maw agape, unleashing a torrent of icy breath that engulfed the surroundings. In its wake, the clouds in the sky were instantaneously frozen in place. Alas, with circumstances at such a critical juncture, Tong Yi could no longer remain hidden. He let the laws of space dissipate as lightning surged violently around him. In an instant, the very fabric of the world for miles around transformed into a tempest of thunder. Tong Yi's hair shimmered with a golden hue, standing on end like needles. As he levitated at the heart of this storm, all arcs of lightning coalesced around him, dancing and surging like a tempestuous deity of thunder. At the moment the thunderstorm descended, the ice dragon's frigid breath was mercilessly torn asunder. That which could freeze all existence faltered, rendered ineffective in the face of the storm. It is crucial to understand that thunder is a branch of fire within the four primordial elements of earth, wind, water, and fire. Conversely, ice and snow belong to the branch of water. Their antagonistic nature renders the outcome uncertain. Master. Master has truly arrived. Master, save me. Within the formation, the once anxious six-eared macaque, upon witnessing the distant tempest of thunder, first felt astonished, then sensed Tong Yi's aura, and was instantly elated. Woman, my master has come. Just wait and see. My master is invincible. You are in for it. Soon, my master will pin you to the ground and strike you with lightning. The previously disturbed six-eared macaque now brimmed with confidence. He leaped atop a massive rock, hands on hips, making faces in a boastful display while bellowing at Xianming. Oh, the mastery of the thunder laws? Quite impressive, but I shall demonstrate that he pales in comparison to me. At that moment, Xianming, who had been seated upon her frozen throne, rose, her tall figure fully revealed. She cast a cold glance at the six-eared macaque, but found him somewhat endearing. Thus, she redirected all her ire toward the distant figure of the thunderous being. Yet, in truth, as Xianming beheld the approaching storm, a flicker of surprise crossed her mind. Originally traversing the earth, she had sensed the emergence of a violet radiance. Enchanted by the color purple, she had been drawn to investigate, only to stumble upon the scene of the six-eared macaque's cultivation. A grand formation empowered by genuine fire, an extraordinary technique imbued with formidable potency, and a monkey of profound bloodline. These three elements converged, and Xianming was instantly compelled by the thought of subduing this spiritual monkey. As for the monkey's claims of having a master, Xianming paid them no heed. In her eyes, anything that existed upon the primordial land belonged to her witch clan. If the master was willing to intervene, so be it. If not, she would simply eliminate them. Were there not enough formidable beings encased in ice already? The exhilaration of shattering them after encasement was an addiction she relished. Moreover, with the monkey's increasingly boisterous proclamations, Xianming found herself ever more intrigued by the identity of its master, wondering which esteemed figure from the purple cloud might be involved. She was well aware that the Taoist ancestor had proclaimed the transmission of teachings to the 3,000, yet her clan, the ancestral witches, revered the path of the physical body, drawing strength from the divine Father's temple, and thus looked down upon the celestial path. Hence, she pondered which great being could be the master of this spiritual monkey. Unexpectedly, she sensed spatial fluctuations from miles away, although she did not comprehend the laws of space. Her elder brother, the ancestral witch Emperor Jiang, was well versed in them. Through years of close companionship, while she may not grasp the laws of space herself, her sensitivity to their power was unmatched. This led to her earlier decisive action. Initially, as she manipulated the icy breath of the dragon, she felt a sense of disdain. What did it matter if one understood the laws of space? The fact that she could perceive it indicated the opponent's understanding was rather rudimentary. However, she was taken aback to realize that the opponent not only grasped the laws of space, but had also mastered the laws of thunder. Who are you? I have never heard of such a figure in the primordial realm. As Xianming spoke, her icy throne beneath her suddenly transformed into an ice phoenix, which bore her skyward, aligning her with Tong Yi in the distance. Upon hearing the raucous words of the six-eared macaque, Tong Yi had been about to chastise this reckless disciple. But upon hearing Xianming's voice, he felt a wave of relief. His intention was to extend courtesy before hostility, especially since Ho-Tu had aided him. He could not genuinely turn and subdue Ho-Tu's sister. Furthermore, he intended to borrow the Pango Hall from the witch clan to comprehend the Nine Turns' mysterious art. Ultimately, it was wiser to cultivate amicable relations with the ancestral witches rather than to foster enmity. I shall refrain from any formalities, Tong Yi said, bowing courteously, intending to engage in pleasantries. Yet, as he opened his mouth, Xianming interrupted him with a raised hand. Your disciple claims you can subdue me? Then come forth. The ancestral witches were known for their straightforwardness and fiery tempers. Without granting Tong Yi a moment to respond, Xianming waved her right hand, unleashing a torrent of frigid winds that expanded the icy realm anew. With a rush and a hiss, the ice phoenix spread its wings, carrying Xianming towards the thunderous abyss. Boom! Suddenly, two opposing miniature worlds collide in an instant. In this realm, one side is a thunderous prison, ablaze with lightning, while the other is an icy domain, shrouded in frost. As these two forces clash, ice and thunder consume each other in a fierce struggle. Within a radius of 100,000 miles, the brilliance of these two energies paints the sky, causing the earth to tremble as if the very heavens and earth are collapsing. Indeed, a scene of duality between ice and fire. Chapter 69. My master, this next punch will be impressive. Boom. At the moment of collision between the icy expanse and the thunderous inferno, the sun and moon are rendered powerless within 100,000 miles. The universe splits in two, leaving only these two radiant forces, one suffused with golden lightning, the other filled with silvery frost. Each clash of these miniature worlds signifies a grand contest of pure, overwhelming power. Their terrifying waves sweep across all directions, tearing through space and causing the ground to sink thousands of feet. Amidst this tumultuous clash of energies, the figures of Tong Yi and Xianming flicker in and out within the intertwined glow of ice and thunder. In this moment, Tong Yi holds nothing back, concentrating entirely on commanding the power of the thunderous prison. He relentlessly channels the force of lightning towards Xianming's frozen realm, fully aware that this is the only way to earn the respect of the ancestral shaman. The Wu clan reveres Pangu as their progenitor, adhering to the ancient tradition of honoring the strong. They aspire to the glory of Pangu, who once stood against 3,000 chaotic demons. To conquer the Wu clan, there is but one method: to fight. Furthermore, this is the first time since he mastered the laws of thunder that he can unleash the thunderous prison with such unrestrained freedom. Previously, he had used the thunderous laws merely for travel, which was a waste of such power. At last, he can wield it with complete proficiency. However, the consumption of celestial energy by this thunderous prison is indeed formidable. Even though he cultivates the Zixiao Heart Sutra and harnesses the power of Zixiao, and despite his primordial spirit surpassing that of an ordinary late-stage Tai Golden Immortal, the miniature world of perfected laws evolves rapidly. Only those who reach the quasi-saint level can fully manifest such power. For someone like him, who is merely at the late stage of Tai Golden Immortal, the energy expenditure is extraordinarily taxing. After only a brief confrontation with Xianming's icy tempest, Tong Yi finds that the Zixiao power within him is nearly depleted. Yet, he is no longer a helpless little monkey. Swish! Appearing before him are two exquisite spiritual entities, bowing respectfully on his shoulders. They are the spirits of the two celestial islands, Penglai and Yingzhou. With a flourish, they produce fragrant spiritual herbs and fruits. Whenever Tong Yi's Zixiao power is on the verge of exhaustion, without needing to say a word, he merely opens his mouth, and they toss the spiritual herbs and fruits into it. Thus, Tong Yi revels in his abundance of resources. In this manner, the Thunder Prison is maintained. For a time, it has engaged in a stalemate with the icy tempest of Xianming, each equally matched. What is this? Are they each establishing their own microcosm? My senior brother's thunderous principles have evidently reached a remarkable mastery. Who is this adversary? They wield the power of vital essence to manipulate a realm, a formidable being of physical sanctity. When Hao Yan and Yao Dai finally arrive, they are left utterly astounded by the spectacle before them. Initially brimming with arrogance, eager to discern who has dared to bully their disciple, they intended to administer a severe lesson. Yet, upon witnessing this scene, the two celestial youths are rendered deflated. Their opponent is not only a physical saint, but has also mastered the principles. This situation is beyond their capacity to intervene, let alone seek vengeance for their disciple. They were aware of their senior brother's prowess, but they never anticipated he could contend so fiercely against a being of saintly might. Hao Yan stares blankly, his youthful visage filled with incredulity. Although previously Tong Yi had engaged in a contest with a breakthrough saint for a gourd that was ultimately reliant on the system. In Hao Yan Yaotai's view, Tong Yi was employing the principles of time. However, the present scenario is entirely different. It is a pure contest of magical prowess. Indeed, it is astonishing how recently he has emerged. Yaotai shares this sentiment, her shock indescribable. After the initial astonishment, the two celestial youths finally noticed the ethereal entities perched upon Tong Yi's shoulders. More precisely, the spiritual fruits and herbs they are grasping. Hao Yan and Yaotai cannot help but swallow hard, soon murmuring with indignation. How utterly despicable of my senior brother. When did he amass such delectable treasures? Indeed, I always wondered why he possessed such an abundance of celestial energy. It turns out he has been consuming spiritual fruits and herbs. I have the utmost disdain for those who hoard for themselves. Unperturbed by the antics of these two lively beings, Tong Yi, ensnared within the thunder prison, remains entirely focused. His gaze is steely, his hands deftly weaving incantations to manipulate the thunderous forces within, striving to uncover the vulnerabilities of the Xianming ice realm. He is acutely aware that the outcome of this battle concerns not only his own safety and that of the six-eared macaque, but also the potential to win Xianming over. After all, the three divine beasts have fallen into obscurity, and the demon clan has yet to emerge. The witch clan stands supreme, dominating the vast lands of the primordial world. If he could transform an enemy into an ally in Xianming, persuading the other ancestral witches with the assistance of the two sisters, his chances of comprehending the nine turns mysterious art within the Pango Hall would be greatly enhanced. Conversely, should he foster a deep-seated enmity, navigating the primordial realm thereafter would be fraught with peril. His master once imparted, diminish their sharpness, resolve their conflicts, harmonize their brilliance, and mingle with their dust. This wisdom is perfectly applicable in dealings with the witch clan. 63 days pass. Soon, Tong Yi gazes upon the starry sky, his mind already formulating a strategy. Meanwhile, Xianming, engulfed in the icy tempest, displays an unusual expression. The more it collides with the thunder prison, Xianming found herself increasingly astonished. Since she had taken action, it was only natural that she adhered to the principles of the witch clan, respecting her opponent and giving her all. Yet, regardless of how she manipulated the Ice Dragon and Ice Phoenix, even merging the four great laws to bombard the thunder prison, her adversary's thunder prison remained as immovable as Mount Buzhou, flawless and unassailable. What did this signify? It indicated that the opponent's mastery of the thunder law had reached an extraordinary level, and their celestial power was boundless, having ascended to the semi-saint realm for quite some time. Yet, she had never heard of such a formidable opponent. This left Xianming feeling a mix of regret and heightened curiosity. Regret for not waiting for her opponent to reveal their background before hastily engaging, and curiosity about the true origins of this intriguing challenger. How fascinating it was. It had been a long time since she encountered such an engaging rival. Once she encased such an opponent in ice, the sound of shattering would surely be exquisite. No, she couldn't bear to shatter you. Instead, she would place you in her palace as a decorative ice sculpture. With this thought, Xianming licked her lips. Her heart filled not with anger, but with growing intrigue reflected in her eyes. She had traversed the vast wilderness in search of a worthy adversary. But ever since the Dragon Han catastrophe, countless powerful beings had perished. Nowadays, those so-called 3,000 guests of Zixiao were merely rising talents. She had no intention of bullying the weak. The three divine beast clans had also hidden away, and her brothers and sisters within the clan were reluctant to engage in combat with her. It had proved challenging to find a decent opponent. Initially, she believed she could easily subdue the deeply blooded spirit monkey and take it back for trials. Yet unexpectedly, she had drawn forth such an interesting adversary. Moreover, this opponent wielded the thunder law that countered her own, intensifying her desire for challenge to its utmost. She was eager to see just how many of her assaults this adversary could withstand. Oh no, this woman is terrifying. What if my master gets overpowered by her? Have I caused trouble? Inside the Nine Palaces' true fire array, the six-eared macaque trembled in trepidation, muttering to himself. With each collision of the small worlds, his heart quivered. Although he held unwavering confidence in his master, witnessing the cataclysmic scene before him filled him with concern. What if his master were to perish? What would he do then? Would the woman's claim to take him as a spirit pet still hold? All right, you wretched disciple. Once I subdue this woman, you shall join her in celebrating your conquest. At that moment, Tong Yi's voice echoed in Lu Er's mind. The six-eared macaque froze, his furry face displaying the panic of a miscreant caught in the act. Oh no, my mutterings have been overheard by my master. Master, please don't. I was joking. The heavens bear witness, Master. This woman wishes to take me as a disciple, and I would never submit. The disciple's unwavering dedication to his master was evident, as Lu Er, in a state of anxious urgency, called out in an attempt to demonstrate his sincere devotion. However, before he could utter more than a few words, Tong Yi's voice resonated. Enough of the shouting. Open your eyes wide and behold. The next punch I deliver will be nothing short of magnificent. Upon hearing this, Lu Er, the macaque, was momentarily taken aback, then swiftly turned his gaze towards the realm of thunder. In the next instant, his pupils constricted. Chapter 70. Do you submit? The golden purple gourd achieves great merit. Boom. With a sound that seemed inconsequential yet thunderous, Lu Er's eyes widened in astonishment, his expression morphing into one of sheer terror. He beheld his master, who had, unbeknownst to him, dispelled the realm of thunder, now appearing before the blizzard of ice and snow, executing a single, fluid punch. Just one punch. It appeared light and unremarkable, yet the entire tempest of ice and snow suddenly froze as if sculpted from ice. Crack. Boom. In the next moment. Akin to an avalanche, this tempest, equivalent to a small world within the primordial heavens, shattered into countless shards, scattering through the air. Each fragment glimmered with a cold radiance, vanishing into the wind in the blink of an eye. In that instant, the world fell into a profound silence. The power of the heavenly laws descended in a timely manner, silently mending the torn fabric of space. Boom. A figure plummeted from the heavens, crashing violently into the earth, creating a massive crater with spiderweb-like fissures sprawling across its base. This figure was none other than Xianming, who now stood dazed at the bottom of the pit, crimson blood trickling from her lips. Her typically frosty countenance was now etched with disbelief as her phoenix-like eyes stared vacantly at Tong Yi, who remained suspended in the sky. His figure swathed in a purple robe, trembling incessantly. Why you? How did you accomplish this? All of my comprehension of the laws has vanished. What have you done to me? After a brief moment of shock, Xianming's voice erupted in a piercing shriek, imbued with fear and trepidation. Indeed, it was all gone. Everything was lost. The mastery she had cultivated over ice, frost, rain, and snow for countless years had been utterly obliterated. At the moment Tong Yi unleashed his fist and shattered her world of ice and snow. It was as if an invisible giant hand had ruthlessly torn away all her insights. This left Xianming in a state of profound horror, utterly bewildered by the nature of that power. Such a bizarre and terrifying force could not possibly exist in this world. She had never heard of anything like it. Ding. Successfully shattered the ice and snow microcosm. Ding. Received feedback. Mastery of the ice law achieved in the lofty heights above. The continuous chimes echoed in Tong Yi's mind as he stood, fists withdrawn, with an expression of serene calmness. It was as if his earlier punch had been a trivial act. He chose not to respond to Xianming's inquiries about the origins of the system and its powers. For even if he possessed the knowledge, he would not divulge it to any soul in the primordial realm. This was his unwavering boundary for survival. Do you submit? Tong Yi gazed down at Xianming, countering her question with a rhetorical one, uttering merely 3 words. His snow-white robe billowed in the wind, accentuating the enigmatic allure of his striking visage. What is this power you wield? Who are you truly? What are my insights into the laws? Upon hearing Tong Yi's words, Xianming seethed, her voice quaking with a mix of trepidation and an inexplicable emotion. Was it fear? Perhaps so. The unknown often evokes dread, yet the essence of fear is akin to that of exhilaration. Xianming licked her lips, meticulously tending to the blood that had surfaced due to the backlash of her dissipating insights. Her gaze returned to Tong Yi, rekindled with a fierce determination that sparkled with excitement. Even stripped of her power over the laws, as a primordial ancestor, her physical form was already that of a quasi-saint. And she would never yield easily. Submit? Impossible. Tong Yi shook his head slightly, refraining from answering her question, instead reiterating those 3 words. Do you submit? Xianming scoffed, her eyes ablaze with murderous intent. Humph. Submit? As an ancestor, I shall never admit defeat. With that declaration, Xianming's body trembled, unleashing an overwhelming surge of blood vitality that surged toward the heavens, momentarily shrouding the sky. The sheer force rivaled that of her previous icy domain. At that moment, all present in this realm, including Tong Yi, the heavenly pool, and the 6-eared macaque, were taken aback. Though Xianming appeared to be the same beautiful ice maiden, the terrifying essence of her quasi-saint's blood vitality now radiated from her, bearing down upon them like an ancient behemoth, imposing and wild. Is the blood vitality of a quasi-saint truly so formidable? Can my senior brother withstand it? In an instant, the heavenly pool looked at Tong Yi with deep concern. This is dire. A single punch from her could leave him battered and bruised. The heavenly pool, frightened, covered her eyes with her small hands, murmuring, that was merely a clash of laws. But now, Xianming intends to engage in close combat. Their senior brother, possessing only a diminutive figure akin to a late-stage Tai golden immortal, can withstand a strike from the opponent? Ha! How splendid, master. My dear lady, I advise you to submit to my master. The sooner you comply, the lighter his hand may be. Who knows? You might even be afforded the opportunity to become my mistress. Unlike the concerns of Hao Yin and Yao Tai, at this moment within the 9 palaces' true fire array, the 6-eared macaque, astonished by the impressive and terrifying punch, became utterly exhilarated, completely trusting in his master's invincibility. Even upon witnessing the terrifying aura of Xianming, reminiscent of a colossal beast, the 6-eared macaque remained undaunted, shouting towards the array's exterior. Hey, stop shouting. Be careful or your master might strike you down. Little monkey. That's a quasi-saint. Don't disrupt your master. Just as the 6-eared macaque finished its exclamation, 2 figures appeared beyond the grand array. simultaneously admonishing the incessant shouts of the macaque. It was Hao Yin and Yao Tai, standing outside the formation, exchanging bewildered glances at the six-eared macaque within. They pondered why their senior brother would take on such a reckless disciple. Yet, this temperament mirrored that of their senior brother in days gone by. Still, a monkey nonetheless. At that moment, Xianming, suspended in the heavens, wore an expression of indifference, suddenly calling out with a voice that reverberated through the cosmos. Upon hearing this, Hao Yin, Yao Tai, and the six-eared macaque were momentarily taken aback, turning in confusion. Shouldn't they be engaging in battle? Why call out Xuanming's name now? At this instant, Xianming, who had previously exuded a fierce battle intent, was also slightly taken aback. How did the opponent know her name? She had never revealed her identity. Could it be that she was recognized? Infuriating. She was still unaware of the opponent's name. However, just as she contemplated, an invisible force of attraction suddenly descended from above, enveloping her entire being. Even her overwhelming vitality could not resist this intangible pull. What is this? In an instant, Xianming was ensnared by an irresistible force of rule, soaring into the skies, ultimately plunging into the purple gold gourd strapped to Tongyi's back. In that fleeting moment when the purple gold gourd appeared, Xianming, who was previously bewildered, was drawn into the gourd. The once overwhelming aura vanished without a trace, leaving the realm in sudden tranquility. Without hesitation, Tongyi promptly sealed the gourd tightly. Instantly, he inserted a fruit resembling a begonia into his mouth, and his previously pallid complexion regained a hint of color. The consumption of this purple golden gourd was astonishingly fearsome, leaving Tongyi utterly astounded. The celestial energy required by this gourd was indeed terrifying. Merely invoking it once drained him of all his celestial power. It was even more exaggerated than opening a small world. Even during the sealing of Xianming, it continuously consumed vast amounts of celestial energy. Were it not for his substantial financial resources, he truly could not afford to utilize such an artifact. However, after the initial shock, Tongyi felt an immense joy swelling within him. No wonder the mighty beings of the multiverse fervently vied for primordial treasures. The power of the rules that this purple golden gourd responded to was indeed formidable. One must recognize that the opponent was a corporeal quasi-saint. Should he land a blow without evasion, Tongyi's fragile frame would not withstand it. Yet, even before the might of the rules, he was still captured. Suddenly, the purple golden gourd trembled violently. Were it not for Tongyi's firm grip, it would have almost leapt from his hands. Damn, what kind of treasure is this? Let me out. You despicable coward. How dare you employ such insidious tactics? If you have the prowess, confront me one-on-one. In the next moment, a series of dull thuds from fists and the furious curses of Xianming echoed from within the gourd. Clearly, Xianming had realized what was happening and was not one to surrender easily, beginning to unleash a flurry of strikes against the interior of the gourd. This woman is truly terrifying. Sensing the forceful tremors emanating from the gourd, Tongyi marveled at the formidable nature of a corporeal quasi-saint. His hands were left tingling from the impact, and he harbored some concern that the gourd might not withstand the onslaught. Nevertheless, he showed no intention of releasing her. As he soared toward the Nine Palaces' true fire formation, he addressed the gourd, saying, "Woman, I ask you, do you yield?" As expected, another wave of exclamations erupted from within the gourd. "I yield to you? The Witch Clan will never submit. If you possess the ability, imprison me for eternity. When I escape, you will undoubtedly meet your demise." Upon hearing this, Tongyi merely shook his head. For someone who had traversed from modern society and witnessed countless instances of online vitriol, such insults lacked the power to even brush against his soul. He shook the gourd and chuckled lightly. "I forgot to mention. Do you see the crimson mist within my gourd? You need not be confined for a lifetime. Merely 3 moments, and you shall be dissolved into a thick liquid. 3 moments, and I shall await your answer." Having said this, Tongyi landed gracefully before the Haoyin Yaoqi, no longer concerning himself with the gourd. "Brother, this gourd, it is truly terrifying. Even a corporeal quasi-saint can be contained within." At this moment, Haoyin finally grasped the gravity of the situation. With wide, astonished eyes, he gazed at the purple gold gourd in Tongyi's hands. Although he had long accompanied the Dao ancestor and witnessed countless treasures, items like the purple gold gourd, classified as rule-based artifacts, remained exceedingly rare. Simultaneously, Hao Tian's curiosity regarding the vine that Tongyi had previously unearthed intensified. He recalled Tongyi mentioning that the value of the 7 gourds paled in comparison to that single vine. Yet, despite racking his brain, he could not fathom what purpose that vine served to be deemed more precious than this purple gold gourd. "Senior brother, when did you manage to refine the prohibitions?" In contrast, Yao Qi was astounded by Tongyi's speed in refining the purple gold gourd. She was acutely aware of the difficulty in overcoming the prohibitions of this innate spiritual treasure, which comprised 63 restrictions. "I haven't even succeeded in refining a single one. In response, Tong Yi maintained a calm demeanor and softly replied, "You must understand that I am well versed in the principles of formation. 63 prohibitions are merely a piece of cake." After deceiving the child, Tong Yi turned, waved his right hand, and abruptly withdrew the nearly dim and lifeless seed of the nine heavens' true fire. Buzz. The seed quivered slightly, emitting a plaintive hum. "Thanks to you this time, I will properly nourish you upon our return. Rest assured, I shall seek other true fires for you to consume when the opportunity arises. Have you encountered the solar true fire? I will bring it to you next time. I will also procure the three-flavored true fire, the southern Mingli fire, and the Lu Ding divine fire for you to savor." Tong Yi, emulating the words of a boss from his past life, painted an enticing picture for the fire seed. Enchanted by his words, the fire seed sparkled with excitement, prompting him to absorb it into his dantian. With the focal point of the formation gone, the Nine Palaces' true fire array promptly disbanded. Whoosh! A gust of wind swept by, and a remarkably obedient little monkey instantly appeared before the three. It agilely climbed up Tong Yi's pant leg and quickly found itself perched on his back. "Master, I am so frightened. If you hadn't arrived, that woman would surely have taken me away." In the next moment, the six-eared macaque clung tightly to Tong Yi, pitifully exclaiming. Observing this scene, both Hao Tian and Yao Qi were momentarily taken aback. They exchanged glances between Tong Yi and the little monkey on his back. "Hao Tian, doesn't this scene seem oddly familiar?" Yao Qi tugged at Hao Tian's sleeve, inquiring. Hao Tian's lips twitched, torn between laughter and restraint. Internally, he scoffed. How can it merely resemble? This is precisely what Senior Brother did before. Indeed, it was a lineage passed down. The disciple of Senior Brother had inherited the very essence of his teachings. Not only the monkey, but likewise, it was utterly shameless. They had just witnessed the little monkey's audacity behind the grand formation, incessantly clamoring about the Xianming ancestor wraith. Now, feigning innocence, he appeared to be carved from the same mold as his Senior Brother. Just as this thought crossed his mind, Hao Tian felt a sharp pain in his head. He clutched his skull, his face a mask of horror as he gazed at Tong Yi. "Senior Brother, can you read minds?" "What mind reading? I cannot comprehend your words." Unfazed, Hao Tian reached back and pulled Lu Er to the forefront. In an instant, a vine materialized in his hand, the vibrant gourd vine now transformed into a disciplinary rod. Tong Yi seized the vine and swung it towards Lu Er's rear. "Crack! You wretched disciple! To curse your master for being inadequate, then craft her a spirit pet. Master, please don't hit. I didn't do anything." "Crack! You claim innocence? You deserve this. Just moments ago, you were so boastful, urging me to pin her down." "Master, I acknowledge my mistake. Spare me the punishment." Crack! Still retorting. "I bestowed upon you the potential to ascend to immortality. Take a good look at your own cultivation." Master, I am wronged. It's all because she disturbed me." Observing the white-clad youth wielding the vine to chastise the monkey, it was a scene of mutual pursuit. As Hao Tian stood wide-eyed and obedient, he dared not utter a word. Just then, a graceful figure approached from afar. She emanated no detectable aura, yet with each step, she traversed vast distances in an instant, appearing before Tong Yi and the others in the blink of an eye. "Oh, Hunyuan, what brings you here?" The woman, with an exquisite visage, revealed her surprise upon seeing Tong Yi and spoke with a voice as melodious as a flowing stream. Lu Er, who had been yelping in pain from the earlier blows, felt an overwhelming sense of sanctity emanating from the sudden arrival, as if a soothing aura enveloped her. Recognizing that this figure knew her master, Lu Er perceived her as a lifeline. Without hesitation, she darted behind the woman, crying out, "Predecessor, save me." At that moment, Tong Yi, who was still poised to strike the monkey with the vine, stood frozen. His other hand, gripping the purple gold gourd, trembled involuntarily. Chapter 72, Long Time No See. Hota Taoist. Hota Fairy. It has been ages. How do you find yourself here? Upon the sudden appearance of the woman, Tong Yi instinctively concealed the purple gold gourd behind him, his expression tinged with embarrassment. For the woman before him was none other than the Hotu ancestor witch, whom he had not seen for millennia. In the past, she had assisted him in acquiring the measuring ruler of heaven, requesting his aid in an audience with the divine. He had fulfilled her wish, allowing her a private meeting with his master. However, after inquiring about certain matters, before the first lecture at the Purple Cloud Palace could commence, the two hurriedly parted ways. The last time I was merely a mystic immortal. Now, I have ascended to the status of a supreme immortal. Time has indeed flown, and circumstances have changed dramatically. However, this is not the crux of the matter. The primary concern lies in the fact that I have just confined the elder sister of the one before me within the golden purple gourd. Yet I have not yet conquered her. And now, the Earth Mother has appeared. Is this not a situation fraught with awkwardness? I sincerely hope that the encounter is merely a chance reunion after a long separation. The Earth Mother gazed at the white-clad youth before her, her heart filled with surprise. The last time she beheld Tong Yi, he was but a monkey. She had witnessed firsthand the series of extraordinary events surrounding his transformation. She had presumed that after residing deep within the chaos, it would be difficult to encounter him again. Little did she expect to meet him on the vast expanse of the primordial land today. Now, after many years, he had blossomed into a graceful young man. And his appearance post-transformation was remarkably handsome. After the initial astonishment, upon hearing Tong Yi's inquiry, the Earth Mother's thoughts snapped back to reality. She lifted her gaze, surveying the remnants of battle scattered around her, a scene of devastation and suffering. Worry and uncertainty flickered in her beautiful eyes. Might I inquire, fellow Taoist, if you have seen my sixth sister, Xianming? I distinctly sensed the resonance of her vital essence, which prompted my hasty arrival. The Earth Mother bowed to Tong Yi, her enchanting gaze tinged with concern. Just as she had mentioned, since receiving answers from the Tao ancestor Han Jun and departing from the Purple Cloud Palace, she had been traversing the primordial land, seeking answers while aiding the beings she encountered. Today, however, she suddenly felt a powerful resonance of bloodline connection. The ancestral witches share a common bloodline and can sense one another. She quickly discerned that it belonged to her sister Xianming, which compelled her to rush here. Yet, instead of finding Xianming, she witnessed the scene of Tong Yi drawing the monkey. This left the Earth Mother profoundly puzzled. Upon hearing her words, Tong Yi's lips twitched slightly, and the hand concealed behind him trembled. Truly, it is often said that what one fears most will come to pass. She had indeed come searching for Xianming. Now, faced with this predicament, how should he respond? Should he confess that her sister is confined within the gourd? Instantly, Tong Yi awkwardly turned his gaze towards the Yao pool, his eyes blinking incessantly, filled with a plea for help. The one beside him, like himself, knew the Earth Mother and was also a woman. This was a conundrum he could not resolve alone and sought Yao Pool's assistance to navigate the situation. However, upon meeting Tong Yi's gaze, Yao Pool displayed a look of confusion. Senior brother? What is wrong with your eyes? Hao Hian also blinked, expressing concern. Have you strained your eyes, senior brother? I possess a medicinal elixir for eye ailments. What an absurd notion of eye ailments. Tong Yi found himself at a loss for words. These two mischief makers were truly unreliable. Xianming? It was at this very moment, hiding behind the figure of Hutu, the six-eared macaque, covering his rear and baring his teeth, was momentarily taken aback. He turned to Tong Yi, his curiosity piqued. Master, is Xianming that barbaric woman you just captured in the gourd? Swish, swish. As soon as these words escaped his lips, two pairs of eyes landed on the six-eared macaque. Tong Yi clenched the vine tightly, his slender fingers turning pale from the pressure. He was filled with an overwhelming desire to transform this future disciple into a mere whip for reprimanding misbehaving students. What kind of troublesome apprentice had he taken on? Each one seemed intent on sabotaging their comrades. What irked him most was that even within the six-eared divine powers, the Heavenly Emperor and the Jade Pool's 6 ears were not merely acting. On the surface, it could be described as innocent and pure. Yet, in harsher terms, it suggested a lack of exposure to the harsh realities of life. This only deepened Tong Yi's irritation, causing him physical discomfort. Swish. At the very moment Tong Yi cast a glance at the six-eared macaque, Huta's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief as she gazed at Tong Yi. She exclaimed, "Is this true, Taoist Hunyuan? You have defeated my sister Xianming and captured her in the gourd?" It was no wonder Hutu was astonished. While she was aware that the Taoist Hunyuan before her was a disciple of a sage, the problem was that her sister Xianming was no weakling, a physical quasi-saint. Proficient in 4 great laws, among their 12 siblings, Xianming's strength was second only to their eldest brother, Dijiao, the ancestral witch. Such a formidable Xianming could be subdued? To think, from the moment she sensed the bloodline resonance to her arrival here, not much time had passed. If this were true, it would mean her sister not only lost, but was swiftly defeated. Realizing the situation had come to this, Tong Yi knew he could no longer conceal the truth. He revealed his right hand, previously hidden behind him. The purple gold gourd instantly gleamed for Hutu to see, as he explained with a hint of resignation. Your sister Xianming is right here in this gourd. Fairy Hutu, this matter arose because Xianming acted unreasonably first, attempting to forcibly abduct my disciple. When I intervened, she immediately resorted to violence against me. Fortunately, I possess some divine powers and managed to prevail. Upon hearing Tong Yi's explanation and observing the gourd in his hand, Hutu blinked, finally accepting the reality before her. Her sister had indeed been defeated. As for Tong Yi's words, Hutu trusted him. They had previously enjoyed a pleasant collaboration. And moreover, as a disciple of a sage, he could not possibly deceive her. With this realization, a flicker of regret crossed Hutu's face. She bowed respectfully to Tong Yi and said, "I apologize on behalf of my sister. Please forgive her. Though she can be somewhat unruly, her heart is inherently kind. I implore you, kind Taoist, spare her and release her. Seeing Hutu in such a pitiable state, Tong Yi felt his heart nearly melt. Yet, he remained steadfast in his conviction of a life devoid of women, shaking his head slightly, his expression laden with grievance as he lamented. It is not that I do not wish to, my friend. Your sister is far too ferocious. She vowed that upon her release, she would slay me. As he spoke, he waved his right hand, dispelling the subtle barrier that muffled the sounds from the gourd. In the next instant, a torrent of furious exclamations erupted from within. Bastard! Let me out! Despicable wretch! When I am free, I shall freeze you 100 times, thaw you 100 times, and then shatter you into the depths of the abyssal blood sea. If you possess any courage, release me, you scoundrel. Hearing the familiar voice resonate from the gourd, the exquisite visage of Hutu momentarily flickered with embarrassment. Clenching the hem of her garment, she found herself at a loss for words. If her sister were to be released, it could indeed spell trouble for the Hunyuan Taoist. Yet, she could not bear to witness her sister confined within the confines of the gourd. Truly, the innate kindness of Hutu was well-deserved of its reputation. Observing the expression of Hutu, Tong Yi could not help but marvel. Had he encountered another ancestral witch today, they would have undoubtedly engaged in combat without hesitation. Only Hutu would approach the matter with such reasoned discourse. However, his thoughts began to stir. With both Hutu and Xianin present, why not seize this opportunity to propose a request to visit the Panga Hall? Chapter 73. The Hunyuan Taoist is truly a remarkable person. Unbeknownst to Hutu, Tong Yi's mind was racing. She was solely focused on how to maintain amicable relations while also freeing her sister. After several exchanges with Tong Yi, he reluctantly acquiesced to her becoming the mediator to persuade Xianin. Sister, it is I? This is all a misunderstanding. If you could just apologize to the Taoist, I would request that he release you. Would that be agreeable? Hutu stepped forward, softly addressing the still quivering gourd. Upon hearing her words, the gourd abruptly stilled, falling silent. At that moment, within the golden gourd, the once wrathful eyes of the ancestral, which Xianin widened in disbelief. She would rather believe it was merely an auditory hallucination than acknowledge the source of that voice. The instant Hutu spoke, she recognized it immediately. Such a tone, such an attitude. Who but her well-meaning, naive younger sister Hutu could express it so? This realization sent Xianin into a fit of frustration. Now she finally knew the name of the despicable man outside. Hunyuan Taoist? Very well, I shall remember this. Simultaneously, Xuanin's anxiety surged. She was acutely aware of her younger sister's temperament. To put it charitably, she was innocent and pure-hearted. To speak candidly, she lacked common sense. Foolish. Throughout her life, Hutu had been deceived countless times, each time believing in the pity of others. After every betrayal, she never seemed to learn from her mistakes. This time would surely be no different. Deceived by that despicable and shameless Hunyuan Taoist. In her agitation, Xianming cried out, Sister, be cautious. Do not heed his words. That vile man is not to be trusted. He is deceiving you. He has obliterated my comprehension of the 4 great laws. Everything is gone. I cannot coexist with him. My desire is to encase him in ice, for there can be no apology. You must depart at once. Seek out our elder brothers. Xianming shouted at the top of her lungs. Even though she had just been ensnared by the blood mist, fear did not cross her visage. At this moment, however, her face was etched with concern and urgency. She understood the peculiarities of the gourd and was genuinely worried that her foolish younger sister might also be trapped within it. Outside, you Hunyuan Taoist? Hutu gazed at Tong Yi in disbelief, her voice trembling as she spoke. You mean to say that the 4 laws I have comprehended throughout my life are entirely destroyed? This must be a misunderstanding, right? Hutu could not absorb Xuanming's insistence that she flee. Her heart was filled with astonishment. The notion of someone annihilating another's comprehension was simply unheard of. Moreover, her 6th sister had grasped 4 laws. All gone. The Hunyuan Taoist, with his dignified presence and graceful demeanor, was a disciple of a sage. How could he possibly commit such an act? In Hutu's eyes, this was undoubtedly a misunderstanding. Master, is this the punch you spoke of? It can truly obliterate one's laws. That is so impressive. 6-eared macaque, hiding behind Hutu and nursing his sore backside, exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with admiration as he recalled the earlier punch that had shattered the icy tempest, momentarily forgetting his discomfort. Heh, you wish to learn? I shall teach you. Tong Yi gritted his teeth, harboring a strong desire to silence this troublesome disciple. His own image before Hutu was at risk of being tarnished by this miscreant. As for whether he had indeed destroyed Xuanming's comprehension of the laws, Tong Yi did not even glance at the 4 glowing orbs that had appeared in the system space. His starry eyes met Hutu's beautiful gaze as he proclaimed with utmost sincerity, it is a misunderstanding. This is certainly a misunderstanding. It was not destruction, merely sealing. Fair maiden, you know me. I could never commit such an act. Upon meeting Tong Yi's profoundly earnest gaze and hearing his words, Hotu felt a wave of relief wash over her. Lowering her gaze, her cheeks flushed with shyness, she said, I knew it. You are not that kind of person. Surely, my sister has misunderstood you. Sister, did you hear that? Daoist said it was not so. Quickly apologized to him, and I shall have him release you. Within the gourd, Xianming took a deep breath. Feeling a mix of anger and amusement, this Hunyuan Daoist was indeed heartless. How could she be unaware of her own predicament? It was clear that all her lifelong comprehensions were lost. Was it sealing or obliteration? If she could not discern the difference, then her life would have been in vain. All right. I see where the misunderstanding lies. You may reach out to him. I shall no longer concern myself with your matters. An apology is out of the question. Let me perish in this predicament. The voice of resentment and disappointment resonated from the gourd, steeped in sorrow. The fair visage of Hotu fell, her brow revealing a tumult of conflict and grief. In that moment, she found herself at a loss. On one side stood her sister, who refused to acknowledge her wrongdoings, and on the other, a principled ally in the Hunyuan. No matter the circumstances, she could not possibly turn against her ally. Yet, she could not simply disregard her sister either. Tong Yi, perceiving the moment had arrived, could no longer bear to witness Hotu's turmoil. He sighed towards the gourd, addressing Xianming. You are gravely mistaken about me. Reflect upon the events. Have I ever wronged you in any way? To this, Tong Yi shook his head slightly, his expression one of anguish. The reason I brought you into the gourd was to allow you some tranquility. How can you accuse me of such despicable acts? As for the destruction of your lifelong insights, that is sheer nonsense. If you do not believe me, let us wager. If I can lift the seal on your principles, you shall agree to one condition of mine. Is that acceptable? Upon hearing this, Hotu's frown lifted somewhat. She gazed at Tong Yi, filled with gratitude, thinking how truly admirable he was. Despite her sister's rude behavior, seizing her ally's disciple and misunderstanding him, he bore no grudge and treated her with such gentleness. A true disciple of a sage, indeed. Among the great powers of the heavens, besides Hunyuan, only Hunyuan possessed such kindness. At that moment, a voice filled with exasperation erupted from the gourd. The die is cast. The water has been spilled. Your tricks may deceive my foolish little sister, but not me. Very well. If you can truly restore my 4 fundamental insights, I swear by my father, I shall not only agree to 1 request, but 10 without a moment's hesitation. Tong Yi's heart soared with joy upon hearing this. Though the ancestral which was tempestuous and domineering, one must acknowledge that such individuals often kept their promises. Furthermore, swearing an oath before the great Pangu left no room for reneging. With this realization, he wasted no time. Maintaining the gourd consumed immense celestial energy. With a flick of his right hand, for streams of light swiftly entered the gourd. Within the space of the purple-gold gourd, the ancestor which Xianming clenched her fists, her countenance icy as she stared at the opening of the gourd, her eyes brimming with scorn. The principle had been destroyed. It was irreparable. She held no belief in the so-called seal. Her agreement was solely to expose the true nature of this individual to Hotu. She was eager to see what illusions he would conjure next. At that moment, for luminous orbs descended from the bottle's mouth, heading towards Xianming. Humph, such theatrics. With a wave of his right hand, Xianming, undeterred by any scheming, seized the orbs effortlessly, unsealing. At this juncture, the loathsome voice of the man resonated from the gourd. Crack! The 4 orbs shattered in response, transforming into beams of light that surged into Xuanming's third eye. In the next instant, the frosty and sarcastic expression on Xuanming's face faltered. What? This? Impossible. Her eyes widened slowly, pupils constricting, mouth slightly agape, as disbelief washed over her features. Chapter 74. Deceiving the Hunyuan Daoist to become the patriarch's consort. She's back. They all returned. Xianming exclaimed, her cold and elegant visage suffused with incredulity. She gazed at her jade-like hands, gently flexing her fingers, sending countless frost particles swirling from her fingertips, enveloping her whole being. This was to affirm that all of this was indeed real. Instantly, Xuanming's delicate form trembled, a blend of excitement and joy coursing through her. She had thought that all her lifelong insights had been lost. Yet, unexpectedly, they could truly be restored. Fairy, I did not deceive you, did I? At that moment, Tong Yi's voice echoed within the gourd space. Hearing this, Xuanming's expression faltered. Her previously exuberant demeanor shifted to one of awkwardness. The memories of her various insults towards the Hunyuan Daoist flooded back. The cheeks that had remained cold as ice for countless years turned a shade of pink. Reflecting on everything that transpired, ripples of realization surged within her. Indeed, she had been overly domineering and unreasonable. She was aware that the little monkey had a master, yet she still attempted to forcibly abduct him. When the monkey's master arrived, she sought to encase him in ice within the palace. Even after being defeated, he merely inquired if she would yield. Throughout, He had not inflicted any tangible harm upon her, nor had he retaliated against her insults. Her younger sister was right. The Hunyuan Taoist was remarkably powerful, graceful, and benevolent, while she had been persistently aggressive, disregarding her younger sister's counsel and remaining exceedingly obstinate. The more she pondered this, the more profound her sense of shame became. She resolved to persuade herself not to allow her pride to stifle her reason. From beginning to end, this matter was entirely her fault. Thus, Xianming offered her apologies to the Hunyuan Taoist. "Please forgive me, Taoist friend," she said, her cheeks flushed, awkwardly bowing towards the heavens, her voice barely above a whisper. Whoosh! No sooner had her words fallen than she felt that irresistible force of the rule enveloping her once more. In the next instant, her vision blurred, and she found herself standing upon the vast earth of the outside world. The figure clad in white, resembling a celestial being, gazed at her with a smile. "Sixth sister, are you all right?" "Splendid. I knew that Taoist Hunyuan would not deceive me," Ho-Tu exclaimed, eagerly grasping Xianming's hand, her face radiant with joy. "Indeed, it is my fault," Xianming replied, unable to meet Ho-Tu's gaze, her heart in disarray. A blend of embarrassment for Taoist Hunyuan and the awkwardness of having family present overwhelmed her. Fortunately, she quickly thought of something to dispel the discomfort. "Taoist Hunyuan, everything that transpired today was instigated by me. Please, feel free to state any conditions you may have." Xianming feigned composure, striving to restore her icy demeanor. Yet, the moment she locked eyes with Tong Yi, a hint of shyness flickered in her gaze. She nervously tugged at her clothing, her voice softening. "Whatever it may be, I will comply." Ho-Tu stood in stunned silence, as though she had encountered a ghost. She scrutinized Xianming from head to toe, questioning whether she had mistaken her identity. The Xianming she knew was far more domineering than any of her brothers. When had she adopted such a demeanor? Behind Ho-Tu, the six-eared macaque was equally astonished and filled with admiration. His astonishment stemmed from having previously witnessed this woman's wild and unruly nature, which could even be described as mad. Yet, after being accepted by his master into the fold, she had transformed into this delicate and gentle figure. The little monkey marveled inwardly. Truly, the master is remarkable. However, in the next moment, a thought struck six-eared macaque, causing his expression to change dramatically. What kind of demands might his master make? Surely, he wouldn't want to take this wild woman as his wife. No, please. Although she is incredibly powerful, she is also terrifying. He had boasted so boldly before her. If she became his master's wife, his future would surely be bleak. With this thought, fear etched across the little monkey's face as he anxiously glanced at Tong Yi. Meanwhile, in the distant heavenly pool, Hao Hian was equally perplexed by Xianming's sudden transformation. Why is she acting so shy all of a sudden? Hao Hian's round face was filled with confusion. The ancestral witch Xianming had just exhibited immense vigor, overwhelming in its intensity. How could she now appear in such a manner? Beside her, Yao Tai bit her lip in annoyance. I don't know what her fuss is about. It's evident she must be ill. Listening to the conversation behind him, Tong Yi could not suppress a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Yet, when Xianming spoke up, his heart soared with joy, disregarding all else. He mused to himself, conquering a woman is exhaustingly arduous, yet, at last, he had succeeded. With many eyes upon him, Tong Yi clasped his hands in a gesture of respect and met Xianming's gaze, which bore a blend of shyness and anticipation. Without hesitation, he declared, I wish to request that the immortal take me to the Pango Hall. The atmosphere grew tense, as silence enveloped the space. The crowd was momentarily taken aback, their expressions varying. The six-eared macaque exhaled a sigh of relief. Xianming raised an eyebrow, his fists clenched, emanating an astonishing chill once more. Yao Qi, however, burst into laughter, clutching her belly. Hao Hian was utterly bewildered, glancing at Yao Qi, perplexed by her mirth, and then at Xianming, confused as to why she had suddenly returned to normal. He understood the Pango Hall, a sacred place for the ancestral witches, a site of the witch clan's heritage. Was it not a reasonable request for his senior brother to propose a visit to the Pango Hall? Contemplating this, Hao Hian scratched his head, finding women exceedingly complex and difficult to comprehend. Fairy? I have merely heard of the Pangu Hall's legacy from the great Pangu. As a being of the primordial chaos, I too wish to behold the glory of the great Pangu. Tong Yi seemed oblivious to the reactions of those present, continuing to address Xianming. Does this request put you in a difficult position? Xianming took a deep breath, striving to maintain her composure. Had she not made her intentions abundantly clear? How could this Hunyuan Taoist fail to grasp her meaning? It was a rare opportunity to encounter a man who piqued her interest, yet he remained so oblivious. Internally, Xianming scoffed, her face adorned with a smile that barely concealed her irritation. It's not excessive. How could it be excessive? I promised my friend I would not go back on my word. In that moment, Xuanming's heart had already made a resolution. How fortuitous. This Hunyuan Taoist had suggested visiting the Hall of the Father God, which suited her intentions perfectly. Humph. Once in the witch clan's forbidden grounds, how could he leave it well? She possessed countless methods to ensnare him. When the time was right, she would have him as her captive. After all, this did not contravene the vow she had made to the Father God. A flicker of imperceptible emotion passed through Tong Yi's eyes, and he soon wore a satisfied smile in response to Xuanming's reply. He turned to Hutu beside him and inquired, "Fairy Hutu, is my request unreasonable?" Hutu furrowed her brows, surprised that Tong Yi's request was to visit the Panga Hall. Naturally, she had no objections, given the undeniable character of the Hunyuan Taoist. Yet, the matter of the Panga Hall concerned the entire witch clan, and she could not make unilateral decisions. However, before Hutu could articulate her thoughts, Xianming stepped forward, blocking her path, and confidently declared to Tong Yi, "No problem. My brothers dote on me and my younger sister. If we both persuade them, it will surely be no issue. Time is of the essence. Shall we go now?" As she spoke, Xianming surveyed the surroundings, her gaze settling on Haoyan, Yao Qi, and the six-eared macaque, clearly inquiring whether Tong Yi wished for them to accompany him. Chapter 75, Beneath the Mount Buzhou. Ancestral land of the Witch Clan in the heart of the primeval world lies the majestic Buzhou mountain range. To the west, the ominous blood sea of the underworld gathers the malevolent energies of heaven and earth, rendering fish and shrimp barren, birds unable to cross, and not a blade of grass to thrive. In stark contrast, the southern slopes of the Buzhou Mountains appear as a sanctuary favored by the heavenly Tao, presenting a landscape of striking beauty. This region unfolds into an expansive, boundless grassland, stretching endlessly before the eye. It is here that the formidable Witch Clan has established its roots and cultivated its ancestral land. At this moment, several figures soar in from the east, an unusual assembly indeed. Among them are humans and monkeys, both male and female. 3 individuals and a monkey ride the clouds, while 2 other women traverse the skies atop a magnificent ice phoenix. This peculiar gathering is none other than Tong Yi and his companions. Their journey to the ancestral land of the Witch Clan is imbued with significant purpose. Tong Yi remains uncertain of the potential hostility from the other ancestral witches, and thus initially hesitated to allow Yaosi to accompany him. He had intended for the 2 lively companions to escort Lu Er to the Zixiao Palace instead. Yet, Yaosi, unwilling to miss out on the adventure, insisted on joining, eager for a thrill after such a short time in the mortal realm, and curious to see the palace transformed from the head of the ancient Pangu. Understanding her concerns about potential bullying from the other ancestral witches, Tong Yi ultimately yielded to Yaosi's charm and agreed to her presence. As he gazed ahead, he beheld a colossal palace standing at the very center of the boundless grassland. The edifice resembled a head, its surface pitch black and towering into the clouds like a mountain. Intricate patterns adorned its facade, occasionally shimmering with a subtle light under the sun's embrace, exuding an aura of antiquity and mystery. What astonished Tong Yi was the uncanny sensation that, as he scrutinized the palace, it seemed to return his gaze. Not lingering upon the palace any longer, he shifted his attention to the surroundings. Encircling the palace, a vast expanse of land, unoccupied for miles, was etched with countless enormous array symbols. With a mere glance, Tong Yi discerned that the 12 ancestral witches had established a formidable array, elevating it to the level of a primordial grand formation, effectively rendering this place a forbidden ground. Beyond this sacred territory, a sprawling tribe had been constructed, with buildings arranged in a harmonious yet chaotic manner, predominantly crafted from towering ancient trees and various animal hides. Many structures had their roofs entirely covered by a single hide, hinting at the multitude of primeval beasts the Witch Clan had vanquished. Within the tribe, robust members of the Witch Clan moved about, each engaged in their respective tasks. Some were honing sharp weapons, while others were butchering game. The entire tribe emanated an atmosphere of primal vigor and untamed wilderness. Here lies the domain of the Witch Clan. How grand it is. Holding hands with Haoyan Yaoqi, the 6-eared macaque gazed in awe at the towering structures of the ancestral land of the Witch Clan ahead. It was the first time since his emergence that he had witnessed a civilized tribe. Perched upon the ice phoenix, Xianming cast a sidelong glance at the little monkey, her disinterest palpable. She distinctly recalled how this cheeky macaque had previously boasted to her. Were it not for the respect she held for its master, she would have surely given it a proper reprimand. To the outside world, this place is known as the tribe of our elder brother, the ancestral Witch Dijiang. Internally, we refer to it as the ancestral land, Hutu explained with a gentle smile, her gaze drifting towards the little monkey, as if she were transported back thousands of years to the sight of a fiery little macaque, evoking a sense of inexplicable joy within her. Tong Yi, observing the sprawling tribe that nearly occupied half the prairie, began to form a rudimentary understanding of the Witch Clan. Upon hearing Hutu's introduction, he inquired with curiosity, "The Dijiang ancestral witch tribe? Does this mean that all 12 of you ancestral witches have your own tribes?" Do you have one as well? At Tong Yi's question, Hutu's beautiful eyes sparkled as she slightly nodded, poised to answer. Indeed, aside from the ancestral land, the other 11 siblings each have their own ancestral witch tribes across the earth. Before she could continue, Xianming, who had initially been indifferent to the six-eared macaque, interjected with enthusiasm. She smiled at Tong Yi and elaborated, this ancestral land is the largest in scale. The other ancestral witch tribes are only half its size. In addition to the ancestral witch tribes, there are also the Great Witch and Lesser Witch tribes, varying in size and scattered across the 4 cardinal directions. As Xianming spoke, Tong Yi's mind began to conjure images of such a vast assembly of tribes positioned throughout the primordial expanse. It was no wonder the Witch Clan had supplanted the 3 divine beast tribes to become the dominant force in the primordial world. They were truly at the pinnacle of their era. Noticing Tong Yi's contemplative expression after absorbing her words, Xianming felt a surge of impatience. Come, I shall take you to meet my elder brother. He seldom leaves the ancestral land, she said, already steering the Ice Phoenix towards the tribe. Without hesitation, Tong Yi followed closely behind, accompanied by the 2 lively companions and the macaque. As they drew nearer, the vibrant atmosphere of the tribe enveloped them. Their arrival quickly attracted the attention of the witches within the tribe. Ice Phoenix. It is Lady Xianming. Wow, look, Lady Hutu is also on the Ice Phoenix. My lady, how I have missed you. You have finally returned to the ancestral land. Quick, notify the entire ancestral land that Lady Hutu has returned. Oh, and also, the esteemed Xianming. Upon hearing the cheers from ahead, Ice Phoenix initially intended to descend at the tribe's entrance, but in the next moment, it soared high, heading directly towards the center of the tribe. Xianming felt a twinge of frustration within her. The children of the ancestral land truly lack understanding. Although she realizes that her cold demeanor has instilled only fear in them, the gentle nature of the Earth Mother has earned her the affection and admiration of every member of the Witch Clan. Yet, the issue lies in the fact that casual remarks are acceptable in private, but now, with outsiders present, was it really necessary to vocalize such sentiments? What would the esteemed Taoist Hunyuan think of her? These children of the ancestral land are utterly oblivious. I must speak to my elder brother later about increasing their training regimen. As she listened to the jubilant cheers below, the Earth Mother hesitated to soar directly above their heads. She glanced back at Tong Yi, her eyes wavering slightly, before softly speaking, Taoist Hunyuan. Please accompany my sister to the tribal main hall. I shall join you shortly after speaking with the children. Upon hearing this, Tong Yi nodded slightly. Certainly. The fairy indeed brings joy wherever she goes. The Earth Mother, shyly smiling at the praise, nodded toward the Yao pool and then descended gracefully from the Ice Phoenix, prompting another round of exuberant cheers from below. Xianming's heart leaped with joy. How splendid. With my sister gone, I shall have Hunyuan all to myself. The Ice Phoenix quickened its pace, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the center of the tribe before landing. She paused before a grand hall made of blue stone, directly facing the Panga Hall. Oh, is Emperor Jiang steadfastly guarding the Panga Hall? Tong Yi felt a twinge of anxiety at this sight. This clearly demonstrated Emperor Jiang's immense regard for the Panga Hall. The master had mentioned that even he could not enter the Panga Hall. Would Emperor Jiang permit him entry? Taoist friend, come down. At that moment, Xianming's urging echoed from below. Disregarding his worries, Tong Yi descended toward the ground. Oh, sixth sister? What brings you to the ancestral land? A resonant voice emerged from within the Bluestone Hall just before he touched down. The next moment, a robust figure strode out through the grand entrance of the Bluestone Hall. Chapter 76. The Masked Emperor Jiang. As Tong Yi's feet landed, he turned his gaze toward the door of the Bluestone Hall. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, stepping into the sunlight. The leader was a towering figure, resembling a moving monolith. What drew the most attention was the mask adorning his face, obscuring his features. The eye sockets of the mask were 2 slowly rotating voids. Meeting his gaze felt as though one might be inexorably drawn into them. Tong Yi's heart raced slightly. Within the depths of those eyes flowed the power of spatial laws, far surpassing his own rudimentary understanding of such principles. It was as if he were perpetually probing the fabric of space. The 12 ancestral witches each governed different laws. Ancestral Witch Emperor Jiang was well versed in the laws of space. It seems this figure is indeed Emperor Jiang. As Tong Yi contemplated in silence, he discreetly cast his gaze towards the 2 figures standing behind Emperor Jiang. One appeared to be an elder, tall and slender, wielding a peachwood staff. The other, a middle-aged man, possessed arms reminiscent of a monkey and carried an enormous bow on his back, its length surpassing that of an average human. Although their physiques did not match the imposing stature of Emperor Jiang, the formidable aura of vitality exuding from both was unmistakably potent. While Emperor Jiang embodied restraint, these 2 displayed their prowess openly. Tong Yi surmised that they were likely great shamans, though he could not ascertain their identities with certainty. As Tong Yi surveyed the trio of Emperor Jiang, the latter was equally scrutinizing Tong Yi's group of three, which included a youth, two children, and a monkey, a rather peculiar assembly, especially since it was personally brought by Xianming. This curiosity piqued the interest of both the ancestral shaman and the two great shamans. Hua Fu pays his respects to the Xianming ancestor. Ho Yi pays his respects to the Xianming ancestor. The shaman clan placed great emphasis on ancient rites. Despite their curiosity, the two great shamans promptly bowed to Xianming. This exchange confirmed to Tong Yi the identities of the two great shamans, Hua Fu and Ho Yi, both renowned figures within the shaman clan. It was unexpected to encounter them during his inaugural visit to the ancestral land. Why aren't you two in the Huda tribe? What brings you to the ancestral land? Xianming inquired, glancing at Hua Fu and Ho Yi. Oh, never mind that, she added, quickly turning her attention to Emperor Jiang, introducing. Elder brother, this is Taoist Hun Yuan. He wishes to enter the Father God Hall to seek opportunities for enlightenment. Tong Yi stepped forward at the opportune moment. Bowing to Emperor Jiang, I am Hun Yuan, honored to meet you, Taoist. Meanwhile, Hao Yi and Yaozi behaved like a well-mannered child, holding the little monkey and remaining silent. However, upon hearing Tong Yi and Xianming's words, the three of Emperor Jiang fell into silence. The masked Emperor Jiang concealed any visible emotion, but Hua Fu and Ho Yi both furrowed their brows. Hua Fu leaned on his peachwood staff, scrutinizing Tong Yi and Xianming without uttering a word. Yet, Ho Yi could not contain himself. He stepped forward, crossing in front of Emperor Jiang to face Xianming directly. No. The Father God Hall is a forbidden ground for the shaman clan. Even clan members must attain the small shaman status to enter and receive the blessings of the Father God. What qualifications does an outsider have to enter? Ho Yi's opposition was resolute, each word resonating powerfully. After speaking, he bowed to Xianming. Please, ancestor, reconsider. Rules must not be broken. We must not dishearten our clansmen. At this, Tong Yi maintained an even demeanor, while the previously serene countenance of Xianming darkened slightly. She frowned at Ho Yi and coldly remarked, do not use rules to constrain me. The Father God Hall belongs to us, yet all beings in the primordial wilderness are children of the Father God. I owe a promise to the Taoist of Hun Yuan, and today I shall ensure his entry. There is no need for further discussion. As she spoke, an aura of chill enveloped her, causing the temperature around to plummet. Ho Yi felt as if he were plunged into the depths of a frigid abyss. His muscles involuntarily shuddering. He was acutely aware of Xuanming's temperament, knowing well that he could not oppose her. Were it not for the presence of the ancestral deity, Di Jiang, he might have already succumbed to frost. Contemplating this, he turned to Tong Yi, his eyes brimming with dissatisfaction. The Xianming ancestral which had always been fierce and capricious. It was unfathomable that she would suddenly bring someone to the ancestral grounds and demand access to the Hall of the Father God. To him, it was clear that this so-called Taoist of Hun Yuan had bewitched Xianming. Indeed, men from the outside world were often skilled in flattery and sycophancy. What prowess did this youth possess? His frame was so frail. What use was beauty? He was, in essence, nothing more than a pretty face. He probably could not withstand a single blow from him. Realizing this, Ho Yi understood that confronting Xianming was futile. He had to tackle the issue through this pretty boy instead. You, look at me. Ho Yi bypassed Xianming, raising his hands and pointing two fingers at Tong Yi's eyes, declaring, I stand here today. Unless you defeat me, you shall not set foot in the Hall of the Father God. Xianming, witnessing this, was utterly incensed. What should have been a trivial matter, access to the Hall of the Father God, was being blown out of proportion. Allowing one more person entry would not damage anything. As for the rules, who would know if they were not spoken? Why be so rigid? She wished to let him in quickly so she could arrange her plans for him to become her consort. That infuriating Ho Yi truly deserved a frost. You need not worry. Allow me to handle this, Xianming began, but was abruptly interrupted by Tong Yi stepping forward. Yes, very well. Xuanming's expression shifted from fury to delight, a playful smile gracing her face. She had come to understand. If he refused to give her face, then let him taste some hardship. As for whether the Taoist of Hun Yuan could defeat Ho Yi, she had no concerns regarding that matter. Tong Yi moved before Ho Yi, his gaze surpassing him, directed towards Di Jiang. In truth, the situation was quite simple. As long as the ancestral deity spoke, no troublesome rules would hinder them. Unfortunately, the six-eared divine hearing could only grasp his own feeble thoughts. Di Jiang's composure was as steadfast as a mountain, unyielding and indomitable. Tong Yi could not ascertain the other's thoughts. Moreover, with the mask obscuring Di Jiang's expression, no emotions were discernible, unless Di Jiang chose to speak. Relying solely on observation to discern his intentions was utterly futile. Yet often, silence itself serves as an answer. At that moment, Di Jiang appeared as an outsider, hands clasped behind his back. This indicated his tacit approval of Ho Yi's actions. Given this, the path was clear. Let us first address the formidable Hou-Yi. Esteemed Hou-Yi, what must I do to defeat you? Spoke Tong Yi softly, gazing up at the towering figure of Hou-Yi. Ha! Upon hearing Tong Yi's words, Hou-Yi erupted into a hearty laugh, exclaiming, arrogance. With a swift motion of his right hand, he retrieved the enormous crimson bow from behind him, positioning it before Tong Yi. This bow, known as the Tong Bow, was a divine gift from the ancestral shaman. Among the entire Wu clan, beneath the ancestral shaman, I alone possess the strength to fully draw its string. Do not speak of not honoring the Xianming ancestor. Should you manage to draw the bowstring as I do, I shall have no further objections. With that, Hou-Yi grasped the bow in his left hand and drew back the string with his right. A resonant hum filled the air as his vital force surged through his arms, veins bulging like serpents coiling around him. In the next instant, he effortlessly drew the mighty bow to its full extent. The taut bow reverberated with a sound akin to a tiger's roar or a dragon's howl, distorting the very space around them. Save for Di Jiang and Tong Yi, the others present felt a shiver down their spines, their eyes flickering with trepidation. Unable to underestimate the power of this bow, it is crucial to understand that this was the primordial world, where the laws of heaven rendered the fabric of space remarkably stable. The mere act of drawing the bow could create such an overwhelming presence. One could only imagine the devastation should an arrow be loosed. Hou-Yi relished the attention, basking in the awe of the onlookers. Yet, when he turned to glance at Tong Yi, he found him still composed, unperturbed, which ignited a flicker of anger within him. You shall come. He gradually eased his grip, returning the string to its resting place, and then hurled the colossal bow towards Tong Yi. Boom. The moment the bow was cast, the sound echoed like a cataclysmic tempest. All present felt their pupils constrict, expressions varying widely. Kua Fu's legs shimmered with a crimson glow, his knees slightly bending as he prepared to advance. Having forged a good rapport with Hou-Yi, he possessed profound knowledge of this bow and had previously attempted to wield it. However, its weight was akin to that of Mount Buzhou. Despite his utmost efforts, he could not budge it. Thus, at that moment, Kua Fu was genuinely concerned. After all, this Hunyuan Taoist was brought by the Xianming ancestor. Should he be harmed, the consequences for Hou-Yi would be dire. Kua Fu was ready. Even if he dared not catch the bow, he could still intervene at a critical moment to protect the Hunyuan Taoist. The flicker of concern in Xianying's eyes was quickly replaced by calm as she recalled Tong Yi's formidable punch that shattered her icy tempest. She understood well the immense impact and weight of this colossal bow. Even the mightiest of sorcerers would find it challenging to withstand. Yet, her encounters with Tong Yi had imparted a crucial lesson. This seemingly frail and elegant youth possessed an underestimated strength. In the Haoyan Yaoqi, she paused momentarily, then grasped the little monkey's hand and took a step back. Both of them harbored boundless trust in Tong Yi. The bow indeed appeared fearsome, and they dared not confront it. However, if their senior brother were to take hold, their concerns shifted to Hou-Yi. They worried that their brother might inadvertently damage the bow, leaving Hou-Yi distressed and in tears. The little monkey clutched Yaoqi's hand tightly, his eyes sparkling with admiration, unwilling to miss a single moment of his master's charismatic presence. Only Di Jiang remained unchanged, hands clasped behind his back, detached from the unfolding events. In that instant, as the colossal bow descended with the force of a mountain, Tong Yi finally sprang into action. Under Hou-Yi's incredulous gaze, Tong Yi did not retreat or shy away. Instead, he extended his right hand and clenched his fingers. In that fleeting moment, a faint crimson aura enveloped his palm, firmly grasping the bow's central grip. With a resounding roar, as the bow's limbs quivered and emitted a resonant hum, a red dragon spirit emerged from within. Clearly, the divine bow possessed a consciousness of its own, recognizing that its rightful master was not the one holding it, and attempting to break free from Tong Yi's grip. Yet, regardless of how the bow trembled or roared, Tong Yi stood unwavering like a mountain, his left hand resting behind his back, his right hand extended and firmly holding the mighty bow. He remained unmoved, serene amidst the turmoil, embodying an air of strength that seemed to dismiss the bow's defiance. Name, Tong Bao. Grade, Post-Heavenly Treasure. Craftsman, Di Jiang, the Primordial Sorcerer. Details, the Tong Bao, granted to Hou-Yi by the Primordial Sorcerer Di Jiang, is a post-heavenly treasure. When paired with its arrow, its power can rival innate forces, capable of slaying the great Luo and wounding semi-saints. As Tong Yi absorbed the system's description of the Tong Bao, astonishment filled his heart. This gigantic bow could indeed injure semi-saints. Was it the very bow that Hou-Yi would wield to shoot down the sun? Moreover, its weight was truly terrifying. The moment he grasped it, it felt as if he were clutching the very Mount Buzhou, extraordinarily heavy. It should be noted that after sacrificing his root bone and divine powers to the system, his right fist possessed an incredible strength. One could say it was divine in nature. After all, he could shatter anything. How difficult could it be to wield a mere divine bow? Yet, the moment he held this bow, had he not prepared himself, he might have stumbled and fallen. What? Impossible. What kind of monstrous entity are you manifesting as? Hao Yi's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets as he gasped in astonishment. After exclaiming, he repeatedly rubbed his eyes and blinked, striving to discern the reality before him. He appeared as if he had encountered a specter. It is worth noting that he possessed unwavering confidence in this colossal bow and had braced himself to witness the humiliation of the Hunyuan Taoist. Yet, what was unfolding before him? The opponent had effortlessly caught his crimson bow with but one hand, and remained unfazed. How could this possibly be? Even he, upon first encountering this bow before refining it for his own use, had to employ both hands and muster all his strength to hold it. In that instant, a tempest of shock surged within Hao Yi, battering against his composure. He was curious about this seemingly frail Hunyuan Taoist. What manner of being was he truly? Simultaneously, a twinge of trepidation gripped his heart. If the opponent could so easily grasp the bow, could he also draw it back with equal ease? Contemplating this, Hao Yi took a deep breath, held his breath, and fixed his gaze intently on Tong Yi. Roar! The enormous bow trembled incessantly in Tong Yi's grasp, emitting resounding dragon roars, as if astonished by his immense strength. The surrounding air twisted in response to their stalemate, with visible currents of energy swirling chaotically. Finally, Tong Yi spoke softly. As he did, no one noticed the crimson glow emanating from his palm, which was pressed against the bow's grip. Suddenly, akin to the cessation of a system scan, the dragon roars from the bow abruptly ceased. The entire bow returned to tranquility, as still as a maiden, resembling a lifeless object. What a sight it was! Not only was Hao Yi astonished, but even Xian Ming and Kua Fu displayed expressions of shock. They understood well that this divine bow was forged by the Grand Witch Di Jiang using the techniques of the Witch Clan, crafted from the bones and sinews of a Dragonian powerhouse. That being had already reached the threshold of sanctity. Its essence, compressed to nearly 10,000 feet, was meticulously refined into this bow. One could only imagine its weight and the formidable nature of its dragon soul. Yet, Tong Yi merely uttered a gentle command, and this unruly dragon soul seemed to acquiesce. As the master of the divine bow, Hao Yi was even more astounded. At that moment, he sensed a wave of fear emanating from the bow spirit. Fear? Was it truly warranted? When he had refined this divine bow and tamed its spirit, it had taken him several epochs. And now, a simple call from another had rendered it timid? Hao Yi felt a surge of indignation. He resolved to chastise this bow spirit thoroughly later. What a coward! Seeing the bow settle into silence, Tong Yi wasted no time. He took a gentle breath, held the bow in his left hand, and knocked an arrow with his right hand. He drew the colossal bow back. Boom! In the astonishing gaze exchanged between Hao Yi and Kua Fu, the colossal bow was gradually drawn back by Tong Yi. The once curved bow became tauter, the bowstring bending with increasing intensity. As the bow was drawn, an overwhelming force permeated the air, as if the very fabric of space would be torn asunder by its might. Tong Yi maintained an unperturbed expression, for he truly felt no exertion was required. However, the novelty of drawing a bow for the first time stirred a sense of exhilaration within him, prompting him to pull with greater vigor. In an instant, the bow was drawn to its full extent, forming a crescent shape. With a swift motion, at the moment the bowstring was taut, a brilliant red light erupted from the bow, and a radiant arrow manifested from the string. The very instant the light arrow appeared, an aura of devastation surged forth from its tip. Oh, I can conjure a light arrow? What a splendid bow! Were it not for its owner, I might have claimed it for myself, Tong Yi mused, a hint of satisfaction gracing his features. His playful spirit took over, and he could not restrain himself any longer. He lifted his gaze, scanning the faces of those present. Friends, do not jest. Brother, I'm frightened. Master, what are you doing? The crowd gasped as the arrowhead swept past, hastily retreating while chiding him. Even the ancient deity, Di Jiang, felt a shiver as the arrow passed, the eyes behind his mask spinning with increased speed. Tong Yi ceased his teasing, finally directing his focus towards the distant Mount Buzhou, where the earth met the sky. Confidence radiated from his face, a slight smile gracing his lips, and he released the taut bowstring. With a resounding clang, the moment the light arrow was released, it unleashed a thunderous sound, akin to the roar of celestial thunder, resonating throughout the heavens and earth. The onlookers were struck with awe, turning to witness the arrow, imbued with an aura of annihilation, cutting through the sky with immense power. The arrowhead pierced the fabric of space, emitting a sharp, piercing wail. A crimson trail marked its path, and then, there was nothing further. It did not strike the intended Mount Buzhou, but instead veered towards the western direction of the mountain. Surely, there is no one to be found on the western side of Mount Buzhou? The once confident Tong Yi retracted the colossal bow, glancing nervously at the horrified expressions of those around him. "Do not touch my bow," Hui exclaimed in terror, rushing to Tong Yi and snatching the divine bow from his grasp. He then retreated several steps, scrutinizing the bow with great care and communicating with its spirit. Once he confirmed there was no damage, Hui secured it on his back, wiping the beads of sweat from his brow, and turned his gaze towards Tong Yi. In that moment, the astonishment within Hui was beyond words. He had been so captivated by Tong Yi's ability to draw the bow and unleash a light arrow in one fluid motion that he had been unable to intervene in time. At this moment, observing Tong Yi's archery precision, Hui felt an unsettling sense of dread. Fortunately, that arrow did not strike within the tribe. Otherwise, calamity would have ensued. As for the arrow shot towards the west, whether it would hit someone, Hui chose to disregard it. After all, it was not he who released it. Should anyone come seeking retribution, he would certainly be the first to inform them that it was the work of Hunyuan Daoist. "So, are you convinced now?" Tong Yi gazed at Hui, a light chuckle escaping his lips. As for his lackluster archery skills, what of it? He had never wielded a bow in his previous life, and this was his first attempt in this one. It was entirely reasonable to miss the target. Not hitting anyone was already a commendable feat. Upon hearing Tong Yi's words, Hui's expression wavered. He truly did not anticipate that the seemingly frail figure before him possessed such formidable strength. Not only did he successfully draw the bow, but he also conjured a luminous arrow. By the standards of their agreed-upon contest, he had already lost. Yet, Hui's heart simmered with indignation. He had only visited the Father God Temple thrice, once upon reaching adulthood, and twice during his ascension to minor and major shaman. In Hui's mind, the Father God Temple was not merely a forbidden ground. It was the sacred hall of the shaman clan. As a major shaman, he had only been there thrice. Why should an outsider like Tong Yi be granted entry? Even knowing that Xianyuan ancestor shaman was displeased with his obstruction, Hui remained resolute, gazing intently at Tong Yi and declaring, "The Father God Temple is a sanctum that must not be trespassed by those of lesser bloodlines. Forceful entry will only result in injury. What use is your ability to draw the bow? What is the caliber of your bloodline? If your bloodline surpasses mine, I shall permit you entry." Upon hearing this, Kuafu, standing behind Di Jiang, could not help but facepalm, feeling a tinge of embarrassment. He sighed inwardly, realizing that Hui's obstinacy truly needed to be amended. Otherwise, he might inadvertently stir up further trouble. Even after losing, he refused to acknowledge it and insisted on comparing bloodline strengths. It would be better to call him shameless rather than Hui. Just then, a voice filled with an odd mix of tones erupted from behind Tong Yi. "Wait until you lose to my master. Surely, you will change the contest again." The six-eared macaque, brimming with fury, leaped forward, hands on hips, addressing Hui. "Bloodline comparison? I could defeat you without my master." Before the indignant Hui could respond, the six-eared macaque trembled. Boom! A torrent of overwhelming bloodline energy erupted from his diminutive form. The sanguine aura surged upward, soaring into the heavens. In the next moment, the sky-darkening blood energy transformed into a colossal bird, spreading its wings and swooping towards Hui. What? How could he possess such a powerful bloodline? And moreover, is he not a monkey? Why does his bloodline take the form of a bird? Such a scene unfolded. The assembled crowd, with the exception of Tong Yi, was taken aback. Even the usually impassive Di Jiang, the ancestral shaman, instinctively clenched his fists behind his back. Xian Ming, another ancestral shaman, stared with wide eyes, her face a mask of disbelief. It is well known that the current cultivation system in the primordial realm comprises two paths, the cultivation of the primordial spirit and the cultivation of the physical body. The celestial path established by Hong Jun and the demonic path established by Luo Ho both pertain to the cultivation of the primordial spirit. The Wu clan, however, lacks a primordial spirit and solely cultivates the physical form. To cultivate the physical body is akin to assessing one's aptitude for immortality based on one's bloodline strength. The stronger the bloodline, the higher the bottleneck, and the less energy, rare materials, and time required for body refinement. Consequently, the Wu clan has delineated exclusive bloodline tiers, categorized as Wu Soldier, Wu General, Minor Wu, Major Wu, and Ancestral Wu. The tier of bloodline determines the bottleneck of the physical body. What unfolded before them was extraordinary. The six-eared macaque possessed not merely a powerful bloodline, but one so formidable that it could manifest visibly. This level of bloodline strength had evidently surpassed that of a Major Wu and was perilously close to that of an Ancestral Wu. This implies that should the six-eared macaque pursue the path of physical cultivation, it might very well attain the level of Ancestral Wu, corresponding to the quasi-saint realm of the celestial path. It is noteworthy that, presently, among the entire primordial realm, only the 12 ancestral shamans have reached such a physical state. Hence, the astonishment within Xian Ming was palpable. She was aware of the six-eared macaque's formidable bloodline, but had not anticipated it to be of such magnitude. Moreover, her question mirrored that of the others. Why did the bloodline manifestation of this little monkey take the form of a pung bird? Furthermore, there was something eerily familiar about this pung bird, evoking a sense reminiscent of the Phoenix clan. Little monkey. What audacity! Hou Yi's gaze fixated on the approaching blood-tinged pung bird, a mix of astonishment and fury swelling within him. According to the little monkey, it was merely a disciple of the primordial Taoist. He was conversing with its master, so what right did this youngling have to interject? Yet, not only did it audaciously point a finger at him in reproach, but it also dared to manifest its bloodline first, challenging him in a contest of bloodline strength. This was intolerable. Hou Yi roared, his robust frame trembling with rage. The power of his bloodline erupted forth, surging from every pore, ascending into the sky. In an instant, his overwhelming blood aura transformed into a colossal ape wielding a gigantic bow. A bird? Do you not realize that I excel in shooting birds? As the immense pung flapped its wings, the blood-red ape's eyes gleamed with ferocity as it drew the bow, swiftly conjuring a massive blood arrow. With a surge of momentum, it released the arrow towards the giant pung. Whoosh! The blood arrow pierced the air, even swifter than the giant pung's wings, in a heartbeat arriving beneath its belly, poised to pierce through its very form. Such a scene drew gasps from the heavenly realm, leaving the gathered deities in a state of tension, their fists clenched, and beads of sweat forming in anxious anticipation. They had just been watching the performance. Lu'er moved with astonishing speed, cursing as he transformed his bloodline. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late to intervene. At that moment, the two celestial youths inwardly cursed. That damned Hou Yi. If he harmed their beloved disciple, they would undoubtedly shatter his colossal bow and use it as firewood to brew tea. Whoosh! However, what was utterly unexpected was that at the critical moment, the giant rock transformed into a massive whale in the blink of an eye. As the whale appeared, it swung its tail with a thunderous force, akin to a divine dragon sweeping its tail, shattering the blood arrow that had just approached, and turning it into a mist of blood. Uft! Damn it! I will slay you. As the blood arrow shattered, the ape-man also dissipated. Hou Yi trembled all over, his face flushed, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, with his eyes wide in fury. He felt both shame and rage as he gazed at the little monkey before him. With a right hook, he aimed to strike at Lu'er. In that moment, his eyes turned blood red, revealing his murderous intent. Chapter 79. Di Zhang takes action. Mastery of spatial laws. Just as Lu'er had retracted his bloodline energy into his body, he felt an overwhelming killing intent rush towards him and saw a gigantic fist enlarging before his eyes. He was slightly startled, cursing Hou Yi for being unable to play fair. Yet, it was merely a slight shock, for his master was right behind him. Hou Yi's actions were merely a pursuit of dissatisfaction. With that thought, Lu'er, undeterred, advanced instead of retreating, directly using his face to block Hou Yi's punch. Witnessing this scene, the celestial youth, who had been pleased that his wayward disciple understood the importance of defending his own, couldn't help but shake his head. Although he was present, Hou Yi could not harm Lu'er under any circumstances. Yet, the issue was that his disciple was exceedingly brave, using his face to withstand a punch. Who had taught him such a technique? While pondering this, the celestial youth pulled Lu'er back with his left hand and extended his right hand forward. Boom! Hou Yi's murderous punch was effortlessly caught by the celestial youth's single hand. Feeling as though his fist was ensnared and unable to move, Hou Yi was greatly alarmed. In truth, the moment he threw his punch, he had already come to his senses, realizing that his anger had led him to harbor murderous thoughts, which was utterly inappropriate. Thus, as soon as he struck, he began to withdraw his strength. However, he did not anticipate that the Hunyuan Taoist would be so swift as to seize his fist before he could retract it. Most importantly, at that moment, he clearly understood just how powerful the Hunyuan Taoist was. To be able to draw the divine bow, his strength must indeed be terrifying. Yet, in this comparison, Hou Yi finally grasped what true, insurmountable strength entailed. The Witch Clan boasts a robust physique, towering over ordinary humans like a giant. Yet, when his massive fist descended, it was firmly grasped by the diminutive palm of his opponent, rendering him unable to strike or withdraw. This left Hou Yi feeling an overwhelming sense of shame, coupled with astonishment. It is noteworthy that he had not summoned the formidable vitality of his physical form. He merely swung his fist. However, his adversary exhibited no signs of vitality or celestial energy. This implied that the contest was purely a test of strength, and he had been utterly overpowered. As chaos ensued within Hou Yi's mind, the dispassionate voice of Tong Yi reached his ears. If you cannot win in a fair contest, do you resort to ambush? Is this the hospitality of your witch clan? Tong Yi gazed at Hou Yi with an impassive expression, his ears subtly twitching. At this moment, Ho Yi's inner turmoil was palpable, allowing Tong Yi to perceive his thoughts clearly. He sensed that although Ho Yi had briefly entertained murderous intent, he had retracted it, lacking the genuine desire to kill Lu Er. However, Tong Yi had no intention of letting him off the hook. Everyone must take responsibility for their actions. As he spoke, the palm of his right hand, which held Ho Yi's fist captive, began to emanate a crimson glow. In an instant, an unsettling aura of destruction surged forth from his hand, unabashedly enveloping Ho Yi's entire arm. No. Ho Yi's eyes widened in terror, his scalp prickling with dread. He was at a loss, aware only that he was inhaling the scent of death. He realized that if he did not break free, he might perish here. In a moment of sheer panic, Ho Yi felt the hairs on his body stand on end. He could no longer rely solely on brute strength. With a surge of vitality erupting from within, he unleashed the full extent of his physical prowess. Damn it! What is this? He roared. Not out of confidence, but out of frustration. Even with his utmost effort and the entirety of his physical form displayed, the ominous aura of death still lingered. Left with no alternative, he swung his other hand in a powerful punch aimed at Tong Yi's visage. Enough! Is this not embarrassing enough? Suddenly, a resounding voice echoed across the realm. It was the Grand Witch Di Jiang. I am saved. Relief washed over Ho Yi as he felt a surge of spatial energy envelop him. In the next moment, his surroundings shifted, and he found himself transported back to Kwa Fu's side. Ah, damn it. You want to kill me. You want to kill me. Ho Yi exclaimed, now fully awake and staring in terror at the still-standing Tong Yi. At this moment, true fear gripped him. The aura of death, although dissipated by Di Jiang's intervention, continued to haunt him, leaving him shaken to his core. Oh, Tong Yi observed Ho Yi's disarray with a hint of intrigue. Tong Yi, however, did not even cast a glance in his direction, but instead turned to gaze at Di Jiang. All of this was unfolding precisely as per his design. The earlier intention to employ the system to vanquish Ho Yi was merely to draw out Di Jiang. From the very beginning, the latter had feigned ignorance, merely observing the spectacle while allowing Ho Yi to impede him. Yet, Tong Yi understood that his entry into the Pango Hall was wholly contingent upon the actions of the ancestral shaman Di Jiang. Thus, he sought to provoke the latter into action. In that fleeting moment, only Di Jiang, having mastered the laws of space, could obstruct him. Should Di Jiang have chosen to remain passive? It would matter not. If Ho Yi were to perish, then so be it. Though he yearned to enter the Pango Hall, he would not endure humiliation indefinitely, nor would he permit his disciple to be bullied in his stead. If he were to inadvertently slay Ho Yi, it would be a consequence of the latter's own actions. At worst, he'd discreetly deliver a blow to the Pango Hall later on. Of course, that would be a last resort. Fortunately, his gamble paid off. Di Jiang finally could no longer remain idle. Simultaneously, Tong Yi found himself intrigued by the spatial laws wielded by Di Jiang. It was noteworthy that during his prolonged stay in this world, he had only witnessed the remnants of Yang Mei's soul exhibit such laws. After comprehending the laws of space, Di Jiang was the first to demonstrate them before him. However, the previous fluctuation was so subtle that even he had nearly overlooked it. It was evident that Di Jiang's understanding of the spatial laws was profoundly advanced. This prompted Tong Yi to contemplate a discussion with him regarding these laws. My friend, since you are a guest of my sister and of the Wu clan, how delightful it is to have friends come from afar. Today's events were a result of Ho Yi's rudeness, as well as my lax discipline. Meeting Tong Yi's gaze, Di Jiang, who had already taken action, ceased his pretense. He offered a slight nod to Tong Yi, and a sincere voice emerged from beneath his mask. In the next moment, he shifted his focus, his deep-set eyes behind the mask now fixed upon the visibly distressed Ho Yi. Your state of mind is in disarray. I hereby decree that you return to the Huta tribe and contemplate in solitude for a millennium. Upon hearing these words, Ho Yi instantly regained his composure, a shiver coursing through him as he cast a glance at Tong Yi. The words he wished to utter, seeking vengeance from Di Jiang, remained unspoken. For upon reflection, he acknowledged that he had indeed been overly aggressive from the outset. Conversely, could one truly claim that the little monkey was without fault? Sighing heavily, Ho Yi glanced at Di Jiang, and then at the grim-faced ancestral shaman, Xian Ming, beside him. He could not help but lament, feeling as though a child abandoned by its mother was akin to a blade of grass. In his view, Di Jiang's leniency towards the Hunyuan Taoist was solely out of respect for Xian Ming, which led to his own punishment. Had the Lady of the Earth been present today, would he have endured such humiliation at the hands of this so-called Hunyuan Taoist? Certainly not. Upon reflection, Ho Yi felt an overwhelming sense of grievance. My dear goddess, where art thou? Return swiftly to safeguard your little E. What transpired here? Why has conflict erupted? At that moment, a gentle voice resonated through the crowd. Upon hearing that familiar sound, Ho Yi was enraptured, as if celestial melodies graced his ears. Following the source of the voice, he beheld the graceful approach of Hutu. Goddess, you have truly come. Your E has been wronged. Tears welled in his eyes as he called out and rushed towards Hotu. The heart-wrenching tone of his voice and his desperate stride evoked deep sorrow in all who bore witness. Chapter 80. A world where only Ho-E is wounded. E. Are you unharmed? Did my elder brother trouble you? Let us converse amicably. Why resort to violence? Hotu traversed the distance in a single stride, arriving before Tong-E, her gaze filled with concern. Moments prior, she had been reminiscing with her tribespeople about the state of their community. Suddenly, she sensed the luminous arrows emanating from the Qing Shi Hall. Before she could take action, she witnessed the bloodline transforming in combat. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she hurriedly bid farewell to her kin, intending to mediate between the two parties. Fortunately, upon assessing the situation, it appeared that Tong-E bore no significant injuries. Oh, I am unscathed. There is no need for concern, fair maiden. Tong-E felt a twinge of embarrassment under Hotu's earnest gaze. He had nearly obliterated Ho-E, who was a member of Hotu's tribe. The name itself revealed the profound connection between Ho-E and Hotu. This realization stirred a sense of unease within Tong-E, causing him to overlook the subtle shift in Hotu's address toward him. All is well, all is well. Hotu exhaled a breath of relief, her cheeks flushed. Stealing a glance at Tong-E, she silently rejoiced that he had not discerned her earlier anxious manner of address. How mortifying. Surely, the others did not notice, did they? Huh, others? Suddenly aware of a voice calling her, Hotu turned to look behind her. In the next instant, she found Ho-E staring in disbelief. As if turned to stone, gazing blankly at her and Tong-E. Oh dear little E, what troubles you? Why are you weeping? Are you being bullied by my elder brother? Observing his distress, Hotu immediately approached Ho-E with concern. It was known that Ho-E had followed her since childhood, and she had witnessed his evolution from a shamanic warrior to a great shaman. Ultimately, due to her own aspirations and desires to explore the vast wilderness, she entrusted the affairs of the Hotu tribe to Ho-E and Kwa-Fu to manage. In the eyes of Hotu, Ho-E resembled a younger brother. Naturally, the other clan members also held a similar status in her heart. As Ho-E came to realize that Hotu still cared for him, he could not help but burst into tears. To him, Hotu embodied the essence of an older sister, even more so, a mother figure. Moments ago, Hotu had brushed past him to inquire about Hunyuan Taoist, leaving Ho-E utterly bewildered. Wasn't this Hunyuan Taoist brought by the ancestral deity Xianming? How could he possibly know his revered lady? Moreover, it seemed they were quite familiar with each other. At that moment, Ho-E felt as though his heart had shattered into a myriad of pieces, leaving him adrift. Fortunately, when he saw Hotu return to ask about him, concern etched on her face, he began to understand. His lady must only know that Hunyuan Taoist. After all, given her inherently benevolent nature, she would extend her kindness to even a rain-drenched ant, offering assistance. It was entirely normal for her to show concern for outsiders in the tribe. It had to be that way. Ho-E continually reassured himself that he still held a place in Hotu's heart. Yet, the more he tried to convince himself, the more his grievances piled up. In front of Hotu, he finally let it all out, weeping like a child. Woo-woo, my lady. It was that little monkey. And that Hunyuan Taoist. My lady. The one brought by Xianming. He seeks to harm me. Although Ho-E felt dissatisfied with Emperor Jiang's punishment, he knew better than to voice his grievances in front of him. Complaining to Hotu in the presence of Emperor Jiang, he risked being exiled to chaos in the blink of an eye. As for Xianming, he was not someone to provoke either. Thus, all his frustrations were directed at Tong-E. However, what Ho-E did not expect was that after hearing his accusations, Hotu, who had been gazing at him with affection, suddenly wore a look of astonishment. What? Are you referring to Taoist E Hunyuan? Hotu initially shook her head, then furrowed her brow as she gazed at Ho-E and decisively stated, You must be mistaken, little E. Taoist Hunyuan is such a kind soul. How could he ever wish to harm you? Have you perhaps done something wrong? And that little monkey, how adorable. Did you bully it? Crack, crack. Ho-Ye's mouth fell agape, unable to comprehend the words of his lady. All he heard was the sound of his recently mended heart shattering once more, splintering into 8 fragments. Ho-E was utterly perplexed. Who was this Hunyuan Taoist? Why were the 3 great ancestral deities all defending each other? He was the only one who had been hurt. Younger sister, you have returned as well. Come, come, come. The honey produced by the 9-fold spirit bees that my elder brother raised recently is exceptionally sweet. I shall prepare some honey water for you. At that moment, Dijiang approached Hotu and spoke. Though his expression was obscured, the joy in his voice was unmistakable. Hearing this, Hotu smiled as well. Despite being one of the 12 ancestors of the witch clan, she was cherished by her brothers, particularly by her elder brother, who always ensured she had delicious food. Yet, a hint of concern crossed her face as she pointed at Ho-E and inquired of Dijiang. Elder brother, is Xiao-Yi unharmed? He's merely disturbed in his heart. Let him cultivate earnestly. Dijiang interrupted her, waving his right hand, causing Ho-E to vanish from sight. He then turned to Tong Yi and gestured courteously, "Friend, shall we discuss matters within the hall?" Xian Ming, witnessing this, couldn't help but chuckle. This elder brother, his favoritism is glaringly obvious. When I bring companions, he feigns ignorance. Yet as soon as he sees my little sister knows Hunyuan Daoist, he eagerly invites her. How infuriating. But alas, I cannot contend with him. Consoling herself, Xian Ming chose to disregard Di Jiang and took the lead, pulling Tong Yi toward the Qingshi Hall without waiting for him to speak. Seeing this, Hao Tian and Yao Qi silently held the little monkey's hand and followed behind them. Can't this sixth sister be a bit more composed? Di Jiang grumbled under his breath before turning to Ho Tu, his voice laced with humor. Come, little sister, that honey water is truly delightful. In the Western world, two figures were advancing slowly, one of whom was pale and evidently gravely injured. Suddenly, a piercing sound cut through the air. The two turned in alarm, only to see a radiant arrow piercing the void, hurtling toward the pale-faced figure with terrifying force. Damn it, who shot that arrow? Chapter 81. The Pangu opens the heavens. Xian Ming, a good woman in the witch clan's ancestral land. Within the Qingshi Hall, Tong Yi stepped inside and surveyed his surroundings. The hall was vast, clearly a realm unto itself. The three walls each bore a distinct, colossal mural depicting a giant whose features were indistinct. The first mural, the giant, aglow with light, wielded a massive axe, cleaving the darkness. The second mural, the giant stood alone against 3,000 beings of equal stature, having already severed half of them to mere limbs and dismembered bodies. The third mural, the giant loomed large, his axe shattered into 3 pieces, suspended around him. Though there were only 3 murals, a single glance inspired boundless reverence, distinct from Xian Ming, Tong Yi, Lu Er, and the 4 from the Hao Yi and Yao Qi found themselves captivated by the 3 murals before them, their gazes lingering as if ensnared by an unseen force. Each intricately carved play of light and shadow appeared vividly alive, as though echoing the formidable might of the primordial chaos era, striking deep into their hearts. Though legends of Pangu's creation of the heavens and earth had long circulated, the specificity and lifelike quality of these depictions were unprecedented, akin to the artist having witnessed the events firsthand. Unconsciously, Tong Yi and Lu Er stepped forward, their attention drawn to the second mural directly facing the entrance. Among the 3,000 silhouettes confronting the giant, 10 figures surged boldly at the forefront. Despite their indistinct forms, Tong Yi and Lu Er recognized one at first glance. Surely, you haven't seen this before? The content of these murals is something I beheld in the Hall of the Father God and painstakingly carved myself. At that moment, a figure materialized beside Tong Yi, speaking in a muddled tone. Hearing this, Tong Yi's gaze sharpened. He refrained from addressing the masked man and instead gently stroked the head of Lu Er, the monkey. Looking at the mural, he remarked with an air of calm. I have long heard that your mastery of spatial laws approaches perfection. Today's encounter indeed lives up to its reputation. Lu Er looked up. The gleam in his eyes dimmed. Curiously blinking his big, round eyes, he asked, Master, isn't this merely a mural? How does it relate to spatial laws? Truly a clever disciple, you have captured my admiration, Tong Yi patiently elucidated. At first glance, one marvels at the craftsmanship. Upon closer inspection, you will discover that the 3 murals are intricately carved using the principles of spatial laws. The fusion of spatial power with the murals is exquisitely profound, giving the viewer the sensation of stepping into another time and space. Tong Yi's clear voice echoed throughout the grand hall. Upon hearing this, everyone displayed expressions of astonishment, redirecting their gazes to the murals once more. Even Xianming and Hutu, who had previously encountered these murals, now surveyed them anew. Although they had seen them before, they had never delved into the origins of these artworks. To their surprise, they learned that they were sculpted using spatial laws. Upon hearing Tong Yi's commendation, Emperor Jiang, the ancestral shaman, could not help but turn his attention towards him, the previously languid rotation of his eyes quickening slightly. I did not expect you to be the first to comprehend the essence of these murals, he said, a hint of pride and joy lacing his tone. It is worth noting that this mural was the first he had carved after emerging from the Hall of the Father God. At that time, there were no clans of shamans, nor had any other ancestral shamans been conceived. Over the years, many siblings and numerous great and minor shamans had entered this stone hall. Each one, upon their initial encounter with these 3 murals, had displayed astonishment. Regrettably, not a single one had truly grasped their meaning, a fact that had long troubled Emperor Jiang. It felt as though he had caught a magnificent fish. However, as he carried this grand catch on a stroll, he encountered no one. Even if others crossed his path, they merely glanced past him without a second thought. No one paid him any mind. Yet today, the Hunyuan Daoist not only perceived this, but also articulated the profound subtleties in front of his 2 younger sisters. This brought immense satisfaction to Emperor Jiang. filling him with an undeniable sense of accomplishment. Nevertheless, one matter remained distinct. While the Hunyuan Taoist indeed uplifted his spirits, the fact that he was brought by his two younger sisters extinguished all his good humor. "Please, take a seat," Emperor Jiang instructed. With that, he vanished in a flash, appearing in the center of the grand hall alongside Ho Tuesday. There, 12 spacious and imposing stone thrones were arranged, clearly reserved for the 12 ancestral witches. Upon witnessing this, Tong Yi felt a tinge of regret, pondering the peculiar temperament of Emperor Jiang, who donned a mask. Initially, he had thought that such praise would encourage the Taoist to engage in a discussion about the laws of space. Instead, the Taoist's demeanor shifted faster than that of a woman, explaining the reason behind the mask. "Come, little sister, have some water. Look at you. How long has it been since you visited the ancestral grounds to see your elder brother? Huafu mentioned that you rarely return to the Hotu tribe. What could be keeping you so occupied?" Emperor Jiang guided Hotu to a seat, pouring her a cup of honeyed water before inquiring about her well-being. This scene elicited a shake of the head from Xianming. What was it about her slight foul mood, her explosive temper, or her crude language that set her apart from her younger sister? Was this elder brother truly so biased? Yet, she had grown accustomed to it, and the matter at hand was pressing. Xianming led Tong Yi to the center of the hall, urging him to take a seat before turning to Emperor Jiang. "Elder brother, you ought to say something. How long have our friends been here? You keep sending Ho Yi to delay. Will you allow them to enter the Father Goddess Hall or not?" As she spoke, she strode purposefully to a seat beside Emperor Jiang, sitting down with a determined gaze fixed on him, clearly indicating that she would not relent without an answer. "Oh." At her words, Hotu looked at Emperor Jiang, her eyes filled with confusion. No. I certainly did not. Do not listen to your six sisters' nonsense. You know Ho Yi's temperament, stubborn as a mule. Everything that transpired was his unilateral decision. Moreover, I am not delaying. I was merely eager for you to taste this honeyed water." Seeing Hotu nod slightly and smile after hearing his explanation, Emperor Jiang felt a sense of relief. He then turned to Xianming, his tone tinged with resignation. "The Father Goddess Hall is not solely for me. You must at least secure the consent of the other ancestral witches." Xianming's lips curled into a knowing smile, and she replied languidly, "It seems that your thoughts align with mine, elder brother. It matters not, for I have just communicated with the other brothers. All have responded favorably, save for the 9th brother. Along with my agreement and that of the youngest sister, the supporters have exceeded the majority. Even if you, dear elder brother, were to oppose, it would bear no consequence." A glimmer of pride danced within Xuanming's eyes. The other brothers, fearing confrontation, naturally acquiesced. As for the absence of a response from the 9th brother, it could be said that no message was even sent her way, for she, the 9th sister, well versed in the laws of time, is a formidable opponent I cannot contend with. Having spoken, Xianming cast a reassuring glance towards Tong Yi, conveying a silent promise of competence. Upon hearing this, Di Jiang, the ancestral shaman, was momentarily taken aback. He swiftly grasped Xuanming's maneuver, which only deepened his disdain for Hunyuan Taoist, akin to witnessing a cherished cabbage being offered to a pig. For her sake, his own sister was willing to go to such lengths. But what excuses could he muster now? "Elder brother, I too am in agreement," spoke Hotu, seated beside him. Her words struck like a thunderclap, obliterating Di Jiang's intent to delay further. Enveloped in despair and indignation, he realized that the pig was not merely to be offered, but 2 cabbages. Yet, upon seeing Hotu's eyes brimmed with hope, he ceased his pretense. Rising abruptly, he cast a profound glance at Tong Yi and declared, "Very well, let us proceed. I shall summon our kin, erect the altar, and open the Father Goddess sanctuary." Tong Yi, upon hearing this, was elated, casting grateful glances towards Xianming and Hotu, particularly the former, who had truly exhausted every effort. What a remarkable woman. Though the path had been fraught with challenges, it was fortunate that Di Jiang had finally spoken. Yet, Tong Yi found it curious that Di Jiang's tone seemed to harbor a suppressed fury beneath his mask. Chapter 82. The opening of the Pango Hall consumes a great Luo golden immortal. Why has the altar suddenly been erected for ancestral worship? Today is not the day designated for honoring the Father God. I am uncertain. It seems related to the foreign entity brought by Lord Xianming, that great bird. Lord Xianming is acting recklessly. Opening the altar surely means entering the ancestral hall? What? Di Jiang has permitted a foreigner to enter the Father Goddess sanctuary? I object. I protest. I have heard that Lady Hotu has also consented. Oh, then all is well. I am in favor. As Di Jiang, the ancestral shaman, commanded the establishment of the altar, a wave of fervor swept through the ancestral land of the shaman clan. Discussions erupted among the shamans, each visage reflecting a spectrum of emotions. Initially, they voiced their protests. After all, the Father Goddess sanctuary was not merely a forbidden ground but a sacred one. How could foreign beings be allowed to tread upon it? In an instant, the shamans were engulfed in outrage, clamoring for a protest. Yet, in the next moment, a great shaman informed them that the ancestral shaman Hoodoo had given her approval. In that instant, all the members of the witch clan transitioned from darkness to light, from the witch soldiers to the high priest. They all altered their expressions to indicate that everything was resolved. It can be said that allowing outsiders into the Pango Hall is an exceedingly difficult exception to make. Not only must the 12 ancestors of the witch clan consent, but the entire clan must also agree. This reveals why, in the past, Hongjun Daozu was so decisively rejected before attaining sainthood. One could also say that Tong Yi was fortunate, as he found himself under the protection of both Xianming and Hoodoo, one restraining the ancestor witches and the other the high priest. Naturally, Tong Yi, who was constantly using his six-eared divine hearing, was well aware of these dynamics. However, he had no time to express gratitude to the two women, for his heart and mind were entirely captivated by the Pango Hall. At this moment, before the forbidden ground of the witch clan, three figures materialized, Tong Yi, along with Emperor Jiang and Xianming. As for Hao Yin and Yao Qi, Tong Yi did not permit their entry, opting instead to wait in the Azure Stone Hall. After all, it was a forbidden area, and his solitary entrance was already an exception. If he were to include them, what would remain of its sanctity? Tong Yi was quite astute in this regard. Meanwhile, Hutu chose to remain in the Azure Stone Hall, unable to bear the sight of the sacrificial process, keeping Yao Qi company. Standing before the Pango Hall, Tong Yi gazed up at the majestic structure, increasingly aware of his own insignificance. He felt an overwhelming aura of dominance enveloping him. Upon closer inspection, the Pango Hall was square in shape and entirely petrified. The entrance, resembling a mouth, was made of material as pure as jade. The two doors did not open sideways as is customary, but instead, they opened vertically. However, at this moment, the doors remained tightly shut. Even with his ears slightly attuned, Tong Yi could hear no sounds from within, suggesting it was a realm unto itself, shrouded in secrecy. Outside the grand doors stood an immense altar, entirely dark red and covered in desiccated blood, obscuring its original material. Just as Tong Yi was observing the Pango Hall, Emperor Jiang approached the altar. With a flick of his right hand, a colossal beast suddenly appeared atop the altar. Tong Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Though the beast's eyes were hollow and its intelligence sealed, it emanated the aura of a great Luo golden immortal. Wow! It requires the sacrifice of a great Luo golden immortal to open the Pango Hall. No wonder Brother Jiang had been so insistent on preventing its activation. While great Luo golden immortals were abundant in the later stages of the primordial era, they were still quite rare at this time. It seems I have indeed struck a significant bargain, further deepening my indebtedness to Xianming and Hutu. At that moment, Emperor Jiang turned and cast a glance at Tong Yi. Though his expression was obscured, Tong Yi understood the intent behind it. He nodded slightly, his eyes reflecting gratitude. Humph! A resigned hum emanated from Emperor Jiang beneath his mask, followed by a swift wave of his right hand. With a swift motion, an invisible force of spatial power descended like a sharp blade, cleaving the massive beast's carcass in two. An abundance of crimson blood gushed forth from the wounds. Today, I, Emperor Jiang, accompanied by the Hunyuan Taoist, come to awaken the temple of the Father God. May the Father God bestow his blessings upon us and enhance the fortunes of my witch clan. With a solemn and dignified tone, Emperor Jiang produced 3 large incense sticks, calling out as he approached the Pango Hall to pay homage. After performing 3 bows, he rose and placed the incense sticks into the incense burner integrated with the altar. In the next moment, a fascinating scene unfolded. The 3 incense sticks ignited rapidly, with wisps of white smoke curling upwards, continuously ascending into the air. Ultimately, all the smoke surged into the 2 bottomless chasms above the entrance of the Pango Hall. Tong Yi watched in awe, marveling at the sight. By their very shape, these 2 chasms resembled the nostrils of the great Panga deity. Were they inhaling the smoke? Buzzing. Just as he was lost in such thoughts, the 3 incense sticks completely burned away, and all the white smoke flowed into the chasms. The entire Pango Hall trembled as if responding to a call. Excellent. The temple of the Father God has accepted the incense, indicating that the Father God does not reject you. Xianming, standing beside Tong Yi, smiled broadly and whispered to him. Upon hearing this, Tong Yi raised an eyebrow, secretly relieved. He had not anticipated a final hurdle here, yet fortunately, he shared a connection with the great Pangu. At that moment, as the Pango Hall shook, the blood of the great beast on the altar seemed to respond to some kind of summons. The foul blood remained on the altar, while the pure blood gradually coalesced into eerie bloodlines, winding their way toward the entrance of the Pango Hall. In the blink of an eye, all the pure blood enveloped the grand door. The once pristine, jade-like entrance of Pangu transformed into a deep crimson hue. The tightly shut doors of the Pangu Hall began to quiver slightly, emitting a low, resonant hum. Temple of the Father God. Open. Emperor Jiang gestured with his hands. Reciting incantations, he continuously formed hand seals in the air. Tong Yi could not discern the words Emperor Jiang was chanting, but he caught the final phrase. Taking a deep breath, he fixed his gaze intently upon the door, suppressing his inner tension and excitement as he adjusted his breath. For some reason, he felt a surge of exhilaration. After all, he had remained composed when he first beheld Hongjun Daozu. Boom. At that moment, the trembling doors finally opened a crack. Do not resist. Xuanming's voice suddenly reached Tong Yi's ears. Almost simultaneously. Suddenly, a beam of crimson light erupted from the great door, enveloping Tong Yi entirely. At the same moment, an overwhelming force surged through him. Instinctively, Tong Yi was on the verge of unleashing a punch, but upon hearing Xuanming's words, he ceased his resistance. In a swift motion, he was drawn into the crevice of the open door by the bloodlight. The door swung open rapidly, only to close just as swiftly. As Tong Yi entered the hall, all extraordinary phenomena vanished. The once scarlet door reverted to its pristine white, and the altar lay barren, as if nothing had transpired. Are you satisfied now? I wonder what kind of bewitching concoction that Hunyuan Daoist has fed you. Is it really necessary? With a sigh of relief, Di Jiang turned to Xianming, irritation evident in his tone. In response, Xianming smiled enigmatically. What do you understand? The single men of the Wan Yuan society. Have you truly taken a liking to him? Di Jiang's voice lowered, seemingly unfazed by Xuanming's teasing. What it being single matter? His focus was on the entirety of the Wu clan. A partner would merely hinder his cultivation speed. After all, the propagation of the Wu clan did not rely solely on the union of yin and yang. Initially, he stood alone, yet he managed to forge an entire race. Ultimately, he had yet to encounter a formidable female that met his standards. In the past, Yuan Feng was quite admirable, but Pan Huang did not consent. Upon sensing the seriousness in Di Jiang's words, Xianming ceased her playful demeanor, adopting a frigid expression. She gazed at the Pango Hall and murmured, for countless years, we have sought a method to break the shackles of our bloodline. I am aware that my younger sister even visited the Zixiao Palace to meet the sage. Yet he possessed no answers. Therefore, I have relinquished my hope. Hearing her words, Di Jiang lowered his head slightly, his thoughts heavy. How long had he existed? He could not say. He only knew that the progenitors of the three divine beast races had not emerged before him. In the primordial era, when everything flourished, every innate being had their own path to pursue, and he was no exception. He dedicated himself to cultivation, aspiring to emulate the ancient Father God, achieving sanctity through his physical form, and validating his path through strength. Yet, as time passed, he found that various attempts at enlightenment ended in failure, and the number of contemporary innate beings dwindled. Those who survived grew fearful. Some went mad, claiming the great Tao was incomplete and unachievable. Others retreated into seclusion, while some even abandoned their own paths in favor of pursuing the immortal way. In contrast, Di Jiang remained resolute, steadfast in his pursuit of the physical path, determined to validate his way through strength. Yet, time remained indifferent, silently narrating all that transpired. As he forged his corporeal form to the pinnacle of quasi-sainthood, he discovered that the path ahead was shrouded in darkness, devoid of any illumination. It felt as though he was obstructed, with no avenue for passage. Reluctant to accept this fate, he began to seek alternative methods and engaged in relentless experimentation. Eventually, he encountered other ancestral witches, even giving rise to the witch clan. Now, these ancestral witches have also matured, yet they face the same dilemma. Their paths are similarly obstructed. Fortunately, they too have unearthed a solution. It is the limitation of their bloodline and the absence of a primordial spirit that forebodes a bleak future for the witch clan. At this juncture, Hongjun attained sanctity, validating that the path of immortality was indeed the rightful one. This revelation dealt a heavy blow to Emperor Jiang. He yearned to visit Zixiao Palace to consult Hongjun, to seek wisdom, yet he found himself unable to lower his pride and humble his stature. Fortunately, his most cherished younger sister, Hutu, accomplished what he could not. She approached Hongjun and received an answer. Regrettably, Hutu remained reticent about this revelation, as if it bore some unspeakable weight. She even deceived the other ancestral witches, claiming that Hongjun had no answers. This predicament is precisely why Emperor Jiang, today, is willing to shatter old conventions and permit Tong Yi to enter the Pango Hall, merely to bring joy to Hutu. Perhaps he also wishes to see if the answers he has long sought within the confines of the Pango Hall might finally be revealed through the entrance of an outsider. Thus, when he heard Xianming declare her abandonment, Emperor Jiang felt an immense heaviness in his heart. He wanted to chastise Xianming for her resignation. Yet he felt unworthy to do so. As an elder brother, having failed to forge a path for his siblings and the entire witch clan, what right did he have to reproach his sister for her retreat? Abandonment, perhaps, is not so grave. After so many years, the burden has been exhausting. Gently, he patted Xuanming's shoulder and, having spoken, turned to depart. He resolved to make one last attempt, hoping to coax Hutu into revealing the nature of that elusive answer. What kind of revelation could compel Hutu to conceal and fabricate? He mused, I may have given up on myself, but I harbor hope for the next generation. The Hunyuan bloodline is even more potent than that little monkey S. Perhaps our descendants will shatter the shackles of their lineage. At that moment, Xianming's voice reached his ears. Emperor Jiang stumbled, nearly losing his footing. He turned to gaze at Xianming. His expression clouded with intrigue as the swirling vortexes beneath his mask widened more than ever. Unbeknownst to Tong Yi, the conversation between Emperor Jiang and Xianming unfolded without his awareness. All he perceived was that when the sanguine light emerged, his vision blurred. In the next instant, the once clamorous world fell into a profound silence, even causing a slight ringing in his ears. Is this the interior of the Pango Hall? Upon discerning the grandeur before him, Tong Yi murmured to himself, his eyes brimming with curiosity. The expanse of the heavens and earth appeared boundless beyond measure. Above, a celestial expanse adorned with twinkling stars, varying in size, illuminates the night. Below lies a soil-stained crimson. Ahead, 9 towering pillars, resplendent in their blood-red hue, form a circle. Apart from this, nothing else exists. This tranquil realm explains why no other sounds reach his ears. The atmosphere is profoundly serene. What could these 9 colossal pillars signify? Tong Yi, in communion with his essence and the system, perceives everything as normal, unrestrained. He cautiously approaches the 9 pillars, each step taken with utmost care, fearful of disturbing the tranquility and mystery that enveloped the Pango Hall. Name, Inherited Blood Pillar. Grade, Innate Supreme Treasure. Details, forged from the body cultivation method of the great god Pangu. Comprehension may yield the 9 transformations profound art. As he nears, the system interface materializes before Tong Yi. Observing its contents, he nods slightly, his eyes glimmering with delight. This indicates that the physical cultivation methods of the Witch clan originated from this very place. If he shatters these pillars, his objective will be fulfilled. The cultivation method resides here, but what of the laws? His master had mentioned that the Pango Hall could elucidate laws akin to the creation jade plate. Yet, with nothing else present, how can one comprehend? A sense of perplexity arises within Tong Yi, his eyes shimmering with a violet light. As he seeks to discern whether there are other entities akin to the inherited blood pillar scattered across this vast expanse. Have you arrived? It has been a while. Suddenly, a robust voice resonates in Tong Yi's ears. He jolts, spinning around to locate the source, his pupils narrowing in surprise. To his astonishment, 2 cushions have appeared amidst the 9 blood pillars, one of which supports a figure seated in a meditative posture. This figure grins broadly, locking eyes with him. By the heavens, a ghost! Tong Yi's scalp prickles as he exclaims, retreating in alarm. For he recognizes this figure, not from the primal chaos, but from the annals of time itself. Chapter 84, The Remnant Soul of Pangu? Reviving him. Where are you headed? The same voice suddenly echoes from behind him. Tong Yi halts abruptly, his eyes widening in disbelief. He turns to discover, unbeknownst to him, 9 towering inherited blood pillars have manifested behind him as well. The figure remains seated amidst the pillars, grinning as it gazes back at him. Good heavens! Am I caught in a ghostly loop? Tong Yi whirls around to face the front once more. Indeed, the inherited blood pillars stand resolutely, and the figure continues to smile, mirroring him. Surrounded on all sides like a reflection, he realizes there is nowhere left to flee in this ethereal domain. Resigned to his fate, he ceases his retreat. Wait, what are you doing? He took a deep breath, a strained smile plastered on his face, and turned to the burly man, saying, I was merely jesting. I wouldn't harm your head. Though he spoke thus, his right hand slowly clenched into a fist, poised to unleash its power at any moment. The reason for his uncharacteristic demeanor was singular. The man seated at the center of the blood pillar bore an uncanny resemblance to someone he had once known. Apart from his size, which now matched that of an ordinary person, every aspect of his appearance and attire echoed the visage of the Pangu deity he had encountered in the River of Time. Were this in a different setting, he might dismiss it as mere trickery. But here, within the very cranium of Pangu, who would not be afraid upon such a sudden appearance? You once dared to take a strike from me. Why now do you cower? Upon hearing Tong Yi's words, the burly man remained seated on the cushion, chuckling, his resonant voice reverberating around them. Who on earth would dare to take a strike from you? Tong Yi inwardly scoffed, piecing together the situation. This Pangu-like figure evidently considered himself a chaotic primal ape. Technically, he was not wrong, yet the predicament of being a time traveler complicated matters further. Nevertheless, he resolved to take it one step at a time. Who are you? Did you not perish? Tong Yi approached slowly. intent on having the system scanned to uncover the truth of this being. He did not trust the man's words, but he had faith in the system. I am simply who I am. Death. What difference lies between life and death? Besides, if you are still alive, how could I possibly be dead? The burly man's eyes were filled with a sense of ancient sorrow as he spoke, his tone reminiscent of a casual conversation with an old friend. Yet, his words left Tong Yi astonished. How can you compare, my friend? Your spine still supports the heavens and the earth. Your primordial spirit has ascended to the three pure ones. Your entire corporeal form has been transformed into the myriad of beings. Even this realm is a manifestation of your cranium. And you tell me you have not died? At that moment, the system's panel data appeared before his eyes. Tong Yi quickly glanced at it. Name, remnant soul of Pangu root. Cultivation. Details, possibly a manifestation of the lingering obsession from Pangu's head after his demise. Seeing the woefully scant attributes, Tong Yi nearly erupted in expletives. What sort of absurdity is this, system? Everything is a question mark, and even the details begin with possibly. If you are uncertain, why even bother stating it? Is this some sort of jest? If the entity before him truly is the remnant soul of Pangu, he might bear a grudge against his original form, the Chaos Monkey. After all, were it not for the 3,000 chaotic demons obstructing him back in the day, Pangu might have succeeded in his endeavor to create the heavens and the earth in one fell swoop, thus avoiding his demise from exhaustion. What if this remnant soul holds a grudge and suddenly turns against him? Why on earth did he come here? Ah, yes. It was his rather ungrateful master who guided him here. Does he even comprehend the circumstances surrounding this place? It feels as though he has been gradually drawn into a scheme. At this moment, Tong Yi's mind was in turmoil, overwhelmed by myriad thoughts and conspiratorial ideas. However, the system was not entirely devoid of merit. At the very least, it confirmed that the remnant soul before him was indeed real and not merely a figment of his imagination. Yet, he remained uncertain whether a single punch would suffice. Sit down. I have waited for you for so long. Must you always make me look up at you? Just then, the words of Pangu's remnant soul interrupted Tong Yi's reverie. He gazed at the smiling giant before him, unable to reconcile this cheerful visage with the ruthless deity who once slaughtered 3,000 in the river of time. Why do you say you were waiting for me? Did you know I would come? Tong Yi feigned nonchalance as he sat down, resting his right hand in front of him, voicing his inner confusion. Upon seeing him take a seat, Pangu's remnant soul displayed a look of satisfaction. In response to Tong Yi's inquiry, he said, I knew someone would come. But I did not expect it to be you, the Chaos Monkey. Tong Yi felt a jolt in his chest. He was no fool. Pangu's statement was glaringly clear. While others might not comprehend it, he understood it in an instant. Pangu's remnant soul was indeed referring to him, Tong Yi, rather than the Chaos Monkey. Yet, this raised a contradiction, as Pangu had initially greeted him with long time no see, speaking as if they were old friends. This truly left Tong Yi in a haze. You need not be perplexed. In time, you shall understand what I mean. Pangu's tone shifted. In truth, I wish to enlist your assistance. Here it comes. He knew that this sudden appearance could not be without ulterior motives. Could he refuse? Tong Yi forced a smile, his eyes blinking rapidly. The other party seemed to have anticipated this, responding promptly. In exchange, I can grant you the complete 9-turn Xiangong. Tong Yi hesitated. His purpose for coming here was precisely the 9-turn Xiangong. To return empty-handed was entirely against his nature. He did not immediately acquiesce, but rather responded cautiously. First, tell me what you need me to do. Revive me. What? Tong Yi felt as if his head was spinning. What did he hear? Revive me. The remnants of Pangu echoed, his expression shifting from ease to solemnity. Before I opened this world, I glimpsed the future. I knew I would succeed. Yet I also knew I would perish. However, I foresaw your emergence, an anomaly beyond the Tao. You will resurrect me. The voice of Pangu's remnants grew fainter. Yet to Tong Yi, it reverberated like thunder in his mind. His eyes widened, and his hands instinctively clawed at his head. So itchy, I must be growing a brain. I am about to fall into slumber once more, lest I be discovered by the Tao. The complete 9 transformations of the mysterious art resides within that blood pillar. Take it in your own way. Tong Yi struggled to comprehend the logic, only to see the visage of Pangu growing increasingly ethereal. Upon grasping his words, Tong Yi panicked. Wait, I haven't agreed yet. But before he could finish, the spectral image of Pangu vanished entirely. No, even if I agree, you must tell me how to revive you. If you don't explain, how am I to know? Tong Yi sprang to his feet, shouting towards the heavens. Yet, the world returned to a profound silence, offering no response. Were it not for the 2 meditation cushions on the ground, he would truly believe this was all an illusion. Damn it. What does it have to do with me? It's all about Pangu and the Tao. After waiting a moment longer with no reply, he surrendered to frustration, exclaiming, I don't care. I said I'm not responsible. He then turned to the 9 blood pillars of inheritance, casting aside all hesitation, and struck with a fist. Now that I'm here. Chapter 85. 9 Transformations of the Mysterious Art. First transformation of refining essence blood, Beep. Successfully shattered the inheritance blood pillar 1. Beep. Obtained the feedback of the 9 transformations of the mysterious art, first transformation. Upon hearing the notification echo in his mind, Tong Yi felt a sigh of relief, albeit with a weight in his heart. The remnants of Pangu had instructed him to obtain the art from the blood pillar in his own way. Now that he had succeeded, it confirmed the truth of his words. Did this imply that the warning to evade the Tao and fall into slumber was also genuine? This meant that the Tao stood in opposition to Pangu. The 9 transformations of the mysterious art was indeed difficult to grasp, a bit too hot to handle. Yet, he could not return empty-handed. That was not in his nature. Well, since you want to explain how to revive you, even if I take your art, it doesn't mean I've agreed. He called out to the vast starry sea above. Still met with silence, he finally closed his eyes in satisfaction, allowing his consciousness to enter the system space. In the system space, a red orb of light had materialized. Without hesitation, he reached out to touch the orb. Boom. In an instant, his expression shifted as a torrent of content flooded into his consciousness. What? So vast in quantity. Tong Yi was filled with astonishment. It is important to note that he was no longer the novice who had just traversed into this realm. He had undergone numerous infusions of knowledge from the luminous sphere, including the Zixiao Heart Sutra and insights into various laws. However, the conundrum lay in the fact that even the knowledge derived from the comprehension of array formations paled in comparison to the sheer volume contained within the 9 transformation mystical art. Moreover, this was merely the first transformation of the technique. It nearly overwhelmed his sea of consciousness. Tong Yi experienced a mix of surprise and joy, for this alone illustrated the extraordinary nature of the 9 transformation mystical art. The rank of this technique surpassed even that of his master Zixiao Heart Sutra. Realizing this, he dared not to be careless. He quickly calmed his mind and began to assimilate the knowledge that had manifested within his sea of consciousness. As time passed, with the digestion of the insights from the first transformation, Tong Yi became fully immersed in the process, and the 9 transformation mystical art began to circulate within his body. He could see his blood being roused, as dark, tainted blood seeped from his pores, enveloping him in a fine mist of crimson. Beneath his skin, his veins throbbed, resembling red dragons swirling and surging, emitting deep, resonant roars. Each heartbeat was accompanied by a surge of potent energy, causing the surrounding air to tremble incessantly. Suddenly, Tong Yi's eyes flew open, and he halted the operation of the first transformation. He gazed in astonishment at his own body, for the expulsion of the tainted blood had turned his once pristine white robes a gruesome shade of black, while a foul stench filled his nostrils. He promptly sealed off his sense of smell and shed his garments, for he was assured that no one else was present. However, this was merely a minor issue. Once he removed his clothing, he clearly observed that his physique had indeed become emaciated. Thankfully, he had recognized something was amiss and stopped in time. Tong Yi let out a sigh of relief, a sense of dread lingering in his heart. Had he continued to operate the technique, all of his blood would have been consumed, transformed entirely into essence blood. Such a scenario was undoubtedly perilous, given that it was his first attempt at body refinement. Although the technique was imparted to him without the need for comprehension, he remained a novice. He was unprepared and had directly activated the technique, resulting in this unfortunate predicament. Had he not halted in time, he might have ended up as a mere desiccated corpse. The proper approach should have involved utilizing the essence of rare celestial and terrestrial treasures to substitute for the blood, aiding in the purification of impurities within the blood. The transformation of blood into essence blood was fundamental to the first transformation. Only upon completing the purification of all blood into essence blood could he proceed to refine flesh, bones, and skin. This realization led Tong Yi to marvel at the peculiarity of this technique. Even the first transformation posed such a formidable challenge. It is essential to understand that essence blood, as its name implies, is the quintessence contained within the blood. The quantity of essence blood possessed by each individual is exceedingly scarce. Yet, the first transformation of the 9 transformation mystical art demanded the conversion of all blood into essence blood. Contemplating this, he, with a deft wave of his right hand, Tong Yi summoned 2 stones that soared from his sleeves, now transformed into minuscule representations of the immortal islands of Penglai and Yingzhou, suspended before him. I pay my respects to the master, the ethereal beings, conjured from the islands, bowed deeply upon their emergence. Master, what has happened to you? Their initial reverence gave way to alarm as they beheld Tong Yi's current state. The 2 spirits glanced around, reassured by the tranquil surroundings, devoid of any threats, and exhaled in relief. Do not fret, I am merely focusing on refining my physical form. Are there any rare treasures within the islands that can purify my blood and replenish my vitality? Tong Yi posed his inquiry, opting for brevity rather than extensive explanation, for he was eager to rectify his disconcerting appearance. Understood. Fear not, master. We possess such resources. My island harbors blood ginseng, while Ingzhou Island contains blood lotus, both of which meet your requirements. The spirit of Peng Lai responded promptly, astonished internally. He had witnessed Tong Yi's combat with the undead. Recognizing him as a practitioner of the primordial spirit, it was unexpected that he would now embark on the path of corporeal cultivation. Would he not be striving for dual mastery of body and spirit? No wonder he had arrived in such a state. It is known that refining the physical body is far more arduous than nurturing the primordial spirit. Could the master truly succeed? Yet, as an island spirit, he dared not voice his doubts. Excellent. Tong Yi, aware of the spirit's unspoken thoughts, chose not to dwell on them. I shall commence my cultivation now. Be vigilant. Should my blood become insufficient, replenish it without hesitation. Do not lament the expenditure. The world is vast, and I shall seek more when needed. The two spirits immediately bowed and responded, as you command. Tong Yi nodded and closed his eyes, once again channeling the profound technique of 9 revolutions. As he initiated the cycle, the blood within him surged with increasing fervor, and a stream of dark, tainted blood began to seep forth at an accelerated pace, enveloping him in a thickening mist of sanguine fog, its acrid scent pervading the air. His physique grew gaunt, flesh clinging tightly to bone. Go. Witnessing this scene, the spirit of Peng Lai felt a surge of urgency. With a sweep of his hands, a gentle radiance flickered, and several blood ginsengs floated forth from the island. Hovering above Tong Yi's head, each ginseng was surrounded by a faint crimson glow, a testament to the vital essence contained within. Shatter, the spirit commanded, and one blood ginseng instantly dissolved into a mist, its essence rushing into Tong Yi's mouth. Go. The spirit of Ingzhou acted swiftly as well, manipulating a blood lotus to teleport beside Tong Yi. Transform, he urged. The blood lotus quivered slightly, beginning to shrink in size, as crystalline droplets of blood surged forth. They precisely merged into Tong Yi's mouth. Immersed in the operation of his cultivation technique, he sensed a gentle yet immense energy entering him, swiftly propelled by the method, replenishing his blood. A shiver coursed through his body, akin to a parched land receiving life-giving rain. The veins, once nearly desiccated from the forced exertion of his technique, began to swell with vitality once more. The flow of blood stabilized, no longer bearing the signs of exhaustion. His previously emaciated frame expanded again, quickly returning to its original state. Thus, he diligently operated a cycle of profound skill, completely absorbed in the process. Meanwhile, the external realm of Peng Lai Yuzhou remained ever vigilant, fully concentrated in anticipation of any signs of depletion in Tong Yi's blood, ready to act at once. They tirelessly crushed the blood herbs and compressed the blood lotuses, transforming them into the purest essence of heaven and earth to replenish Tong Yi's vital energy. As time quietly slipped away, the blood mist expelled from Tong Yi's body gradually shifted from a dark hue to a vibrant red. On this day, the foul blood ceased to flow. Tong Yi abruptly opened his eyes, filled with astonishment. Chapter 86. The Terrifying Pain. The first endurance saint of the primal chaos, the 9 transformations of profound skill encompass 9 stages. While the first is foundational, it is also the most crucial, requiring the refinement of blood, flesh, tendons, bones, and skin. Indeed, it proves far more challenging than the pursuit of immortality. Having just completed the blood refinement, Tong Yi felt the overwhelming essence within him and murmured to himself. Yet, the delight in his eyes was unmistakable. The difficulty also signified that upon successful cultivation, he would emerge formidable and suave. He did not aspire to rival Pangu, crushing the realms effortlessly. Achieving a mere 1005 would suffice. In such a scenario, both his primordial spirit and physical form would flourish in tandem, delivering a punch to half of the Zixiao guest and a kick to the other half, a true invincibility beneath the saints. Above the saints? A fair exchange? No. That would be my esteemed master. I would cling to his greatness. Tong Yi gently shook his head, suppressing his excitement. Lowering his gaze upon his form, he beheld the surrounding ground littered with desiccated foul blood, while his skin radiated a renewed, healthy glow. His physique appeared even more robust than before his cultivation. At that moment, all the blood within him had been refined into essence, devoid of any impurities, containing energy far surpassing his former self. He clenched his fist, attuning to the flow of blood within, each pulse akin to a rushing river, causing his body to emit a subtle hum. Impressive, just from blood refinement. He felt that a single punch could obliterate an earth immortal. If the first stage was completed, could he not then shatter a celestial immortal with a single blow? If that were the case, what about the 9 transformations? Tong Yi's heart brimmed with anticipation, though he understood the necessity of patience. Just then, a timid voice emerged. Master. I feel a bit embarrassed to say this, but have you finished? Tong Yi lifted his gaze and beheld the two ethereal beings, Peng Lai and Ying Zhou, their faces etched with terror. The blood refinement had concluded, and you two performed admirably. He regarded the two spirits before him with a sense of satisfaction. One must admit, his fortune was truly remarkable. Had it not been for the acquisition of these two celestial islands, even with the attainment of the 9 transformations of profound arts, immediate cultivation would have been unattainable. He was acutely aware of the reason behind the spirit's expressions. It was merely due to the staggering consumption he had endured during this blood refinement. Although the precise quantity eluded him, the sight of his own vital essence spoke volumes. You need not divulge the extent of the depletion. I have yet to mention that my master is the Tao ancestor. Hanjun, have I? The supreme spiritual roots and fruits from his domain are as abundant as the hills. Upon my return, I shall replenish your supplies. Tong Yi smiled, his tone imbued with warmth and considerable allure as he spoke to the two spirits. What? The Tao ancestor? Supreme spiritual roots and fruits? We thank you in advance, master. Upon hearing this, Peng Lai and Ying Zhou's eyes sparkled with delight, and they promptly bowed to Tong Yi, learning that their master's mentor was the Tao ancestor. Coupled with the mention of abundant supreme spiritual herbs and fruits, brought them a sigh of relief. This was particularly crucial given the overwhelming quantity of heavenly materials and earthly treasures required for their master's recent blood refinement. Blood mushrooms and blood lotuses? Depleted long ago, they had already resorted to other spiritual herbs and fruits to replenish the vital essence. Presently, only a few saplings remained, which they intended to conserve for propagation. It could be said that this singular blood refinement had eradicated half of the available herbs capable of replenishing vitality. Although the Celestial Islands boasted a plethora of spiritual herbs and fruits with various effects, those that replenished vital essence constituted but a fraction. It is important to note that the spiritual herbs and fruits found on these two islands had been nurtured since the dawn of creation. After so many years, this particular category of spiritual herbs had finally flourished, only to be halved in an instant. Simultaneously, they marveled at the sheer ferocity of this physical cultivation technique and pondered what would transpire if their master continued. Surely, they could not afford to deplete their breeding stock. Contemplating this, they could only pray for their master to meet his mentor promptly. Next, I shall continue my cultivation. Assess the situation and replenish me as needed. Remember, do not be frugal. Upon my return, I shall possess an abundance of supreme heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Tong Yi observed the two spirits captivated by his enticing promise and nodded in satisfaction before promptly closing his eyes to commence the cultivation technique. With the blood refinement completed, the next phase involved using his vital essence to cleanse his corporeal form, muscles, bones, and skin. As the technique continued to operate, the vital essence within Tong Yi surged forth like a raging river, propelled by the cultivation method, rushing towards the muscular tissue of his entire being. Each drop of vital essence seemed to carry a burning flame, sizzling audibly wherever it flowed. This pain is unbearable. Tong Yi suddenly opened his eyes, bloodshot and wide with alarm. He ceased his cultivation, leaping from the mat and rolling frantically on the ground. His hands clawed at the muscles that had just been cleansed by his own essence. Gritting his teeth, he drew blood from his gums. The sensation was indescribably horrific. It felt akin to a searing hot iron needle piercing through his veins, while a wire coated in fiery pepper sauce incessantly scraped against his flesh. The agony was enough to send chills through his heart and tremors through his soul. He had once believed that after embarking on the path of immortality, he would remain unperturbed by pain. Even the fury of lightning held no terror for him. Yet, this trial of body refinement was different. It originated from within. Experiencing this for the first time, Tong Yi found himself somewhat daunted. Master, shall we continue? A timid voice from Peng Lai Ying Zhou broke through his turmoil. He nearly forgot that these two spiritual entities were watching. With a swift motion, he regained his composure as he landed on his feet. It's nothing, just a trivial sensation. For your master, it is inconsequential. You must know, my title in the outside world is the Great Sage of Endurance in the Primordial Era. Tong Yi waved dismissively, gritting his teeth yet speaking lightly. That is reassuring. We feared you might abandon this, the two spirits replied, casting their eyes downward as they resumed the gruesome task of butchering a colossal beast resembling both a pig and a cow. However, their trembling hands betrayed their struggle against the pain they endured. Tong Yi observed the two spirits and felt a pang of irritation. They were already bloodletting and skinning the beast, preparing it for roasting. If he were to halt his cultivation now, it would be a tremendous embarrassment. He could not allow himself to be outdone. Determined, despite the fearsome pain of body refinement, he was even more frightened of the disdain from the two spirits. Gritting his teeth, he returned to the mat and, after a brief moment of resolve, resumed his cultivation. Time flew by. With the aid of the two celestial islands, Tong Yi clenched his jaw, enduring the pain as he continued the body refinement. After the passage of over 2,000 years, he finally completed the refinement of his flesh, tendons, bones, and skin. The initial excruciating pain lingered, but Tong Yi, valuing his pride and not wanting to be looked down upon by the spirits, persisted. Fortunately, as he immersed himself fully into the process, the pain gradually dissipated, replaced by an unprecedented lightness and comfort. Boom! On this day, Tong Yi opened his eyes once more, his entire being resonating with a thunderous vitality. The pure aura emanating from his body had reached the realm of celestial immortals. The transformation of his profound techniques was complete. His physical form had ascended to the level of a heavenly immortal. Rising to his feet, he gazed upon his nearly perfect physique, a satisfied smile gracing his face. The suffering and sacrifices had proven to be worthwhile. Time flies, and in a mere moment, the celestial beings of the first transformation appear, followed by the profound immortals of the second transformation, and then the golden immortals of the third. But what of the ninth transformation? Surely it cannot be the great Tao. However, in truth, these realms are merely terminologies. In this corporeal form, he feels capable of vanquishing a true immortal with a single strike and gravely injuring a profound immortal. Defeating foes beyond one's level is an effortless endeavor. The 9 transformations of the mystical arts, the Panga techniques, are indeed fearsome. In an instant, a thought struck him, prompting him to gaze toward the horizon, murmuring, 3,000 years have elapsed. My master is about to commence the teachings. Yet, how does one exit this place? Chapter 87. Insights into the Great Tao of Strength. Escape from the ancestral lands of the witch tribe Ding. Successfully shattered the legacy blood pillar 2 Ding. Acquired insight into the 9 transformations of the mystical arts 2 Ding. Successfully shattered the legacy blood pillar 3 Ding. Acquired insight into the 9 transformations of the mystical arts 3. Within the Pango Hall, resounding roars echoed for 8 consecutive days. It was Tong Yi, relentlessly striking with his fist each day to shatter the legacy blood pillars. He yearned to obliterate them all in one go. Yet the profundity of the 9 transformations of the mystical arts was overwhelming. Fortunately, 8 days were not overly lengthy. Surely, the ancestral witch possesses some techniques, he mused, observing the desolate expanse of land, licking his lips in a moment of uncertainty. A fleeting thrill accompanies each shattering. The exhilaration is ever present. In that moment, as he grasped the entirety of the 9 transformations of the mystical arts, he suddenly realized he had obliterated the legacy blood pillars of the witch tribe. The legacy blood pillars, indeed. Yet, recalling the mirror image conjured by Pangu's remnant soul, and understanding it was the remnant that urged him to do so, he dismissed his concerns. With 3,000 years approaching, it was imperative to hasten back to the Zixiao Palace. The third lecture is of utmost importance, as it pertains to achieving sanctity. Contemplating this, Tong Yi gazed at the vast, boundless expanse of heaven and earth, scratching his head in confusion. He had entered without issue. How does one exit? Hello? Is there a hall spirit? Release me, he called toward the heavens. No sooner had his words left his lips than a voice resonated from the starry void. Tong Yi looked up, momentarily stunned. He beheld a star engulfed in flames plummeting from the starry sea, hurtling directly toward him at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it was above his head. Goodness, are there shooting stars here as well? Tong Yi gasped, yet his hand remained steady as he launched a straight punch. Boom! The force of his punch swept across 1,000 miles, annihilating everything in an instant. Ding! Successfully shattered the legacy star. Ding! Acquired insight into the law of strength. An introduction what? As the system's notification chimed, Tong Yi's eyes widened slowly, his mouth agape in astonishment. Disbelief etched across his face. Did he just hear correctly? The law of strength? Were all these stars in the sky manifestations of the insights into the laws? What I have just shattered is none other than the law of strength. Ward? Pangu stood alone against 3,000 foes, not merely relying on his physical form to attain sanctity, but rather through the profound principles of strength. And now, having ventured into the Panga Hall, I have acquired all of it. In an instant, Tong Yi felt a surge of excitement mixed with disbelief at the absurdity of it all. This meteor, undoubtedly, was the deliberate doing of Pangu's lingering spirit, compelling him to assist in his resurrection. Without further contemplation, a torrent of crimson light materialized out of thin air, enveloping him entirely, just as it had when he first entered the Grand Hall. Tong Yi felt a fleeting blur before his eyes, and by the time clarity returned, the surroundings had transformed completely. He found himself before the altar outside the Panga Hall, precisely at the location from over 2 millennia ago. The Panga Hall had reverted to its original state. Were it not for the changes wrought by the quintuple refinement of his body, Tong Yi might have believed that everything within the hall had been nothing more than a dream, an illusion. He understood now that the urgency of Pangu's lingering spirit in expelling him was simply to avoid unnecessary discourse. Indeed, the law of strength is a force that surpasses even the path of battle against the chaotic demon ape. Not to mention, he had yet to comprehend the path of battle himself. He surmised that he would likely need to merge with the bloodlines of the other two apes to awaken the path of battle. Thus, when opportunity presents itself, how could one refuse? To gain with tranquility and to lose with indifference. Thank you. Should the chance arise, I shall assist you. Tong Yi offered a slight bow towards the Pangu Hall, speaking to himself. Without Pangu, there would be no enchanting primordial world. Assisting in his resurrection, what of it? Would I offend the great laws? First, one must ask whether those great laws dare to withstand a single strike from me. Tong Yi felt a surge of righteous resolve within. He increasingly sensed that after cultivating the 9 transformations of the mysterious art, his mindset had also undergone a transformation. After paying his respects, he did not linger, propelling himself forward with a powerful kick. Boom! The ground beneath him caved in, a testament to his sheer physical prowess. He soared through the air like a cannonball, landing gracefully in the open space before the Azure Stone Hall. This is pure physical strength? Indeed. It is far more exhilarating than employing spells. Tong Yi reveled in the vitality coursing through him, feeling immensely satisfied. Consider this. That leap spanning thousands of miles was entirely the result of pure physical strength, not a technique of movement, nor any spatial laws at play. Should he incorporate spatial techniques, he felt he could leap millions of miles. With his enhanced physique, he could now withstand greater spatial pressures. Have you truly succeeded? Have you indeed comprehended our clan's techniques within the inheritance of the Blood Pillar? Suddenly, an astonished voice resonated before him, preceding the arrival of a figure. It was none other than Emperor Jiang, the masked elder. No, you have successfully completed your first transformation. How is this possible? Di Jiang trembled, circling around Tong Yi, exclaiming once more. Although his expression remained inscrutable, the 2 swirling vortices beneath his helm spun rapidly. It was evident that his heart was far from tranquil at this moment. One might even describe him as having lost his composure. He distinctly sensed a transformation within Tong Yi, an alteration that was undeniably pronounced. This was the unmistakable aura of having cultivated the qi of the 9 transformations of the mysterious art. Moreover, it was the essence that could only be attained after successfully completing the first transformation, where flesh, sinew, and skin had all undergone thorough refinement. How could Di Jiang possibly maintain his calm? After all, how long had it been since the other had entered the Father Deity's Hall? Over 2,000 years. Even during his inaugural entry into the Father Deity's Hall, he had required an entire Yuan meeting to glean the first transformation of the mysterious art from the inherited Blood Pillar. Yet the other? 2,000 years. Not only had he comprehended the teachings, but he had also directly completed the cultivation. This left Di Jiang feeling utterly bewildered. The Father Deity's Hall contained no resources. How had the other managed to cultivate within? Even if he had brought his own resources, it should not have been faster than him. A primordial witch. Who then? Truly was the primordial witch? For a moment, Di Jiang stood frozen in place, questioning the very fabric of his existence. Fellow Taoist, have you truly obtained an opportunity from the Father Deity's Hall? Wonderful, senior brother. You have finally emerged. We were just about to return to the Purple Cloud Palace. Master, what opportunities have you received? Do remember to impart them to your disciple. Just then, several figures, having heard the commotion, emerged from the Azure Stone Hall. Even before their arrival, their joyous voices filled the air. Xianming and Ho Tu genuinely rejoiced for Tong Yi, as they had bravely faced the entire Witch Clan's skepticism to allow him entry into the Father Deity's Hall. Had Tong Yi returned empty-handed, they would have faced ridicule from the primordial witch and the entire clan. As for Hao Tian and Yao Qi, the 2 lively spirits could be dismissed entirely. With 3,000 years nearing, they, as celestial youths, were eager to return to the Purple Cloud Palace. The question of whether their senior brother could gain opportunities from the Pangu Hall was of no concern to them. In their eyes, their senior brother was destined for miracles. With his entrance into the Pangu Hall, how could he not receive fortune? It would be remarkable if he did not emerge with everything in hand. For the 6-eared macaque, nothing else mattered. The only thing of importance was that his master received opportunities to pass on to him. Ah, indeed. Lady Ho Tu, Lady Xianming. Fellow Taoist Di Jiang, the Purple Cloud Palace is about to commence its teachings. We must proceed. At this moment, feeling the scrutinizing gaze of Di Jiang, Tong Yi felt a sense of unease. Upon hearing Yao Qi's words, he quickly interjected. After all, he was not one to comprehend the Blood Pillar. What Blood Pillar remained within the Pangu Hall? He clasped his hands in respect towards the 3, his expression earnest. Thus, I shall not delay your time any further. After I finish listening to the teachings, I will return to the Witch Clan and express my gratitude to you all. The 3 individuals, including Di Jiang, were momentarily taken aback. Was it truly that urgent? However, Ho Tu was aware of Tong Yi's true identity. Immediately, a look of understanding graced her features, and she gently remarked, "Indeed, the teachings at the Zishao Palace are of great significance. Friend, do hurry along." Tong Yi's heart soared with joy, and he promptly took hold of Hao Tian and Yao Qi, with the two lively companions leading the little monkey. In an instant, the three individuals and the monkey were enveloped by the laws of space and vanished without a trace. Wait, why do I feel as though this lad has fled in a hurry? At this moment, Di Jiang finally emerged from his state of shock. He gazed at the spot where the trio and the monkey had just been, feeling the lingering traces of the spatial laws, and muttered in confusion. Chapter 88. The six-eared macaque was bewildered. Is my sect the Zishao Palace? This fellow, could he have committed some misdeeds in the Father God Temple? Di Jiang spoke to himself, his tone filled with skepticism. Big brother, there's no need for concern, Ho Tu interjected. The Hunyuan friend is a rare sage in this world. He would never engage in such actions. She stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Di Jiang's shoulder, her voice soothing. She genuinely feared that Di Jiang might pursue them, which would delay Yi Xiong from attending the teachings. At that moment, Xianming also approached, assertively stating, "Sister is correct. Big brother, you should not doubt the Hunyuan friend. Instead, trust us. Furthermore, within the Father God Temple, aside from the blood pillar and the stars, there is nothing else. What harm could he possibly inflict?" As she spoke, she placed her hand on Di Jiang's other shoulder, clearly understanding his temperament and knowing that if he were to pursue them, Tong Yi would undoubtedly be hindered. Crack. Observing the unwavering support of his two younger sisters, Di Jiang felt a momentary pause beneath his mask. He finally comprehended the meaning behind Ho Yi's earlier gesture of clutching his heart. His younger sisters were excessively supportive of this Hunyuan Taoist. Why were they holding his shoulders? What was the implication? As the esteemed leader of the 12 ancestors of Wu, was he to abandon his dignity and pursue them? Enough, enough. There is no need for such gestures. I trust you both, Di Jiang sighed. Xianming's words held merit. Everything within the Father God Temple was a manifestation of the Father God's head. Its hardness was akin to that of a primordial treasure. What destruction could this lad possibly cause? Indeed, he had overthought the matter. With this realization, Di Jiang turned to Xianming, his tone laced with curiosity. Why did you allow him to leave? Upon hearing this, Ho Tu's beautiful eyes widened, looking towards Xianming. What was the implication? Was there something she was unaware of? Seeing her reaction, Xianming's frosty demeanor suddenly thawed. Big brother, you misunderstand. I did not wish to detain him. Rather, I aim to capture his heart. A man, after all, must be free to soar across the vast expanse of heaven and earth. The preaching at Zishao Palace is of great significance. How could one afford to delay it? Xianming lowered his head, his voice barely audible. You are formidable. Di Jiang fell silent, preferring to witness his sister's frosty demeanor rather than her current, vulnerable disposition. It was quite unbearable. After giving a thumbs up, he turned and returned to the Qingshi Hall. Wait, Hongjun had been preaching for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. It passes in the blink of an eye. If this young man dares to remain absent, Di Jiang would surely seek him out for clarification. Only Ho Tu and Xianming exchanged wide-eyed glances, an inexplicable tension emerging between the two sisters atop the peak of Buzhou Mountain. Three figures and a monkey tore through the void and appeared. Senior brother? Why do I sense a hint of panic in you? Before his form could stabilize, Yao Qi gazed at Tong Yi with her bright, shiny eyes, laughingly inquiring, have you been up to no good? Impudent. How dare you question your elder brother? Tong Yi retorted, delivering a light tap to Yao Qi's head, though his expression bore a trace of guilt. This was troublesome. Even Yao Qi could see through him. Was Di Jiang already at Panga Palace investigating? Ouch! Yao Qi cried, clutching her head, yet she stubbornly insisted, I am not questioning you, senior brother. I simply understand you too well. I may not know if Panga Palace has been damaged, but you have undoubtedly been up to mischief. Upon hearing Yao Qi's words, Hao Ian nodded foolishly, though he dared not speak. After all, a head tap could be quite painful. Nevertheless, Yao Qi was correct. He might not comprehend the condition of Panga Palace, but he certainly understood his senior brother. However, such thoughts remained unspoken. Otherwise, suddenly, Hao Ian felt a blur before his eyes, followed by a crisp voice that predated the sensation of pain. Why are you nodding? You two are questioning your elder brother. Tong Yi placed his hands on his hips, his expression stern. These two lively treasures, one could only imagine the mischief they were concocting behind his back. They deserved a good reprimanding. Not daring to linger, he waved his sleeve, invoking the laws of space to envelop the three figures and the monkey. In an instant, they vanished, hastening toward the entrance of the heavenly realm. Before long, Tong Yi, accompanied by the two lively treasures, ascended the heavenly ladder, soaring through the 33 heavens, ultimately plunging into the chaotic space. After a long journey, they finally returned to the Zishao Palace's teaching grounds. At this moment, The plaza outside the grand hall was already filled with thousands of figures standing in anticipation. Tongyi cast a glance and noticed that many powerful beings who had vied for the gourd 3,000 years ago were present. Di Jun, Tai Yi, and Chang Shi all appeared to be in fine spirits, showing no signs of weariness. This suggested that Yuan Shi had not succeeded. One might have thought that an attempt to seize Tai Yi's chaos bell would be made. It seemed that Di Jun and Tai Yi had flourished remarkably. Tongyi couldn't help but feel a pang of admiration. These two golden crows had indeed been fortunate. Without Kuanping and Luo Shu, they had risen so swiftly. No wonder you have ascended to become the first emperor of the demon realm. It is imminent. After this discourse, the demon clan should be established, right? Yet, what is it about that Zhuan Ti that seems to emanate a familiar aura? Wait a moment, this aura, the essence of the red bow. The very first arrow I shot has struck Zhuan Ti. Why did he not evade? Surely it cannot be so precise. And what of the Eastern King? Why does his countenance appear so grim? The guilty conscience of Tong Yi was filled with myriad thoughts, and he found it somewhat amusing. However, he did not linger. After casting a glance at Zishao Ku, he led Lu Er towards the rear of the Zishao Palace. Meanwhile, Hao Tian and Yao Qi, who were meant to preside over the discourse, halted their steps and landed before the palace gates. This scene drew the attention of many powerful beings, their expressions varying. Oh, it is the two celestial youths. What a relief. Everything seems to be well. Hong Yun exhaled deeply, exchanging glances with Zheng Yuanzi, both relieved to see the ease reflected in each other's eyes. For 3 millennia, they had been anxious, fearing that Hunyuan Dao Run and the two celestial youths had perished, and that the next moment, Hong Jun Dao Zhu would come knocking at their door. They had indeed divined the situation, yet without a doubt. Their predictions regarding Tong Yi yielded no results, nearly leading to backlash. Furthermore, after arriving at Zishao Palace, the prolonged absence of the two celestial youths had caused them considerable concern. Now, witnessing that the celestial youths were unharmed, they could confidently assume that Hunyuan Daoyu was also safe. Finally, they could breathe a sigh of relief. Master, I have brought your disciple. Tong Yi declared as he arrived at the back of the palace, unceremoniously tossing Lu Er by the pond. He called out to the figure still engrossed in fishing. At this moment, Lu Er was utterly bewildered. The diminutive monkey form curled up, trembling as it felt the intangible pressure emanating from this sacred venue. Lu Er was astounded. What were the 3 characters inscribed on the plaque at the entrance of the venue? Zishao Palace. No, what sect have I truly joined? Chapter 89. The biased master bestows Lu Er a 12th grade pure world, White Lotus. What are you dazed for? Is it not your heart's desire to enter Zishao Palace? Have you not disparaged your master as being inferior to the saint's disciples? Now that you see the saint, should you not hasten to pay your respects to your grandmaster? Tong Yi, attuned to Lu Er's thoughts, bore a playful smile, openly revealing the truth. He remembered that before accepting Lu Er as his disciple, this little monkey had envisioned a master who was the foremost disciple of the saint, rather than himself. Now, I shall no longer feign modesty. I lay my cards on the table. Your master is indeed the foremost disciple of the saint. It is you, my little friend, who should feel embarrassed. I did not. No, I did not. Indeed, upon hearing Tong Yi's unreserved revelation, the 6-eared macaque felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. The thoughts that had scuttled through his mind were laid bare before his master. To his astonishment, his sect was none other than the revered Zishao Palace. At this moment, he beheld the legendary Hongjun Laozu, the foremost sage of the primordial world. How could he not feel a surge of anxiety? After a flurry of incoherent words, the 6-eared macaque found himself at a loss. In a moment of desperation, he knelt, bowing fervently before Hongjun Laozu. Lu Er pays his respects to master. His youthful voice echoed through the garden. At this instant, his heart brimmed with both joy and trepidation. The joy stemmed from the realization that the sect he had joined was indeed Zishao Palace, suggesting that he might traverse the primordial realm with confidence in the future. The trepidation arose from the fact that his master had never mentioned this matter. Would his master disapprove of his joining Zishao Palace? Although his master had spent 3,000 years within the Panga Hall, and he had diligently cultivated within the Qingshi Hall, restoring his prowess to the heavenly, immortal realm, he still wondered if such a modest attainment would be looked down upon by the Dao ancestor. At long last, Hongjun Laozu, who had been engrossed in his fishing, turned to regard the bowing 6-eared macaque. A flicker of recognition danced in his eyes. This scene bore a striking resemblance to the moment he had accepted this wayward disciple long ago. How curious. Was it that monkeys inherently understood the customs of apprenticeship? He distinctly recalled that the unruly magic ape of yore had not displayed such docility. Ah, these two disciples were indeed quite similar, clever and sly. Rise, he commanded. Since your master has taken you as a disciple, you are now a member of Zishao Palace. There is no need for you to worry that I shall not acknowledge you. The soothing timbre of Hongjuan's voice enveloped Lu Er like a gentle spring breeze. instantly calming the turmoil within him. I am but a humble disciple, Lu Er proclaimed, slowly rising to his feet. In the next moment, he beheld two streams of light emanating from his master's hand, descending before him. One was a jade tablet radiating a violet glow, perfectly resonating with the Heart Sutra's foundational teachings within him, clearly representing its complete essence. The other was a lotus flower exuding a pure white light, its gentle luminance enveloping him, granting a profound sense of comfort and clarity to his spirit. At that moment, Tong Yi's eyes sparkled with excitement. Name: 12-petal pure world white lotus. Rank: primal treasure. Restrictions: 8972. Details: one of the 5 lotus seeds transformed from the chaos treasure, the Genesis blue lotus. It can purify the world's filth, obscure heavenly secrets, conceal one's roots, and assist in cultivating the mind. Wow, a primal treasure. The 12-petal pure world white lotus. Master, how can you be so biased? You grant the innate treasure right away? You haven't given your disciple any precious items. Upon discerning the data provided by the system, Tong Yi's eyes widened in disbelief, and he immediately voiced his grievances to Hong Jun. Of course, his complaints were merely superficial. Deep down, he felt an immense joy. The 12 pure world white lotus was evidently extraordinary, and the master had bestowed it upon Lu Er without hesitation, indicating the master's high regard for him. Indeed, in the next moment, Hong Jun cast him a discontented glance and said, "After this teaching session, I shall distribute treasures. What you receive will depend on your own abilities." With that, Hong Jun shifted his gaze towards Lu Er and remarked, "You were meant to be non-existent in this world. However, due to the anomaly linked to your master, you have been reborn. This pure world white lotus is conferred upon you. It shall obscure the heavenly secrets, allowing none to discern your origins, while also mitigating the tribulations you may face." Upon hearing these words, both Tong Yi and Lu Er were momentarily taken aback. "Thank you, Master, for bestowing this treasure. Your disciple will certainly devote himself to diligent cultivation and live up to your expectations." Lu Er accepted the jade token and the white lotus, his face alight with joy. He did not comprehend much, but understood that the master did not look down upon him. Rather, he had the master's best interests at heart. Meanwhile, Tong Yi felt a surge of emotion as he gazed at Hong Jun. It dawned on him that the old man had offered this treasure to help him clean up the mess he had created. Indeed, had it not been for his system, Lu Er would have perished after absorbing his bloodline essence. Yet, he had stubbornly used the bloodline of the Kuanping to grant him a new lease on life. Lu Er was neither a 6-eared macaque nor a Kuanping. What, then, was he? An anomaly? No, he could merely be considered an exceptional case beneath the category of anomalies. Such an existence would inevitably attract catastrophic tribulations from the celestial order, which would be far more terrifying than usual. However, Lu Er was not him. He had no burdens. Currently weak and inconspicuous, he would inevitably be discovered by the celestial order once he grew stronger. It was impossible for him to guard Lu Er for eternity. At this moment, the 12-petal pure world white lotus provided by Hong Jun perfectly concealed the heavenly secrets, offering assistance to Lu Er. The master's intentions were truly heartfelt. Tong Yi could not help but feel profoundly moved. "Master, henceforth, I shall never again say that you cannot catch fish," he said earnestly. Boom. As soon as the words left his mouth, Tong Yi felt a dazzling light before him. In the next instant, he found himself soaring over the hall, arcing through the air before crashing down onto the plaza below. The plaza, constructed from exquisite spirit stones, was instantly marred by a gaping crack from his impact. This scene left many powerful beings utterly astonished. Hunyuan, how did you fly over from the back of the hall? Truly, you are a model for our generation. Even your arrival is extraordinary. Long time no see, fellow Taoist. The ground is quite filthy. One cannot possibly sleep here. Due to my unfortunate circumstances, struggling to earn a mere few coins daily, I have changed my cover, hoping to alter my fate. Chapter 90. The Transfer of Smiles, the third lecture. How absurd. Did you not see that I was sent flying? Tong Yi lay at the bottom of the pit, opening his eyes to find himself surrounded by faces, and could not help but curse loudly. He was submissive to Hong Jun, but he would not hold back against those who came to gawk. And they had the audacity to say he could not sleep here? Was this not an outright mockery? His master truly ought to know better. At such an advanced age, one should refrain from jesting. It is utterly cruel. Tong Yi rose from the pit, brushing off the dust from his clothes, muttering complaints under his breath. Upon hearing this, the many mighty beings present changed their expressions in unison, promptly raising their hands to cover their ears. Goodness, is this something they should be subjected to? Brother, are you all right? Hao Tian Yao Qi stepped forward, her tone seemingly concerned, though her lips betrayed her amusement, curling upwards uncontrollably. They secretly laughed amongst themselves. This serves you right for constantly striking our heads. Now, it seems, Even the Lord has dealt you a heavy blow. No worries, it's nothing. That punch from my master was as soft as a feather, utterly powerless. I could endure 10 of those without batting an eye. Tong Yi forcibly suppressed the surging blood within him, maintaining a calm demeanor as he spoke to Hao Tian Yaoqi deep down. He felt fortunate that he had successfully transformed before coming here. Had he relied solely on his previous divine form, he would have been unable to withstand Hong Juan's kick. The surrounding mighty beings listened to Tong Yi's words, each turning away with their faces covered, entirely unwilling to continue hearing him speak. In matters of other kinds, they might have indulged in flattery, but to ridicule a saint? They would be foolish to join in. Is that so? Then why is there blood trickling from your mouth? Hao Tian Yaoqi exclaimed, unable to contain her laughter any longer, clutching her stomach and running towards the main entrance. The surrounding square erupted with suppressed laughter. Damn it! Tong Yi raised his hand to wipe his mouth, only to find it stained red. His earlier facade of strength had been thoroughly exposed. It was over. All the dignity of the saint's first disciple had been utterly lost. It was all due to these two clowns, who failed to offer him a warning. The time has come. Please, everyone, enter the hall. Before Tong Yi could step forward, Hao Tian Yaoqi called out while covering her head. After which, the two of them leaped through the grand entrance. Tong Yi felt a profound sense of frustration. With nowhere to vent his displeasure, he randomly grabbed a passerby, smiling. Fellow Taoist, after this lecture, the banquet arrangements remain unchanged, correct? Dong Wanggong, who had originally bowed his head to enter the hall, suddenly found himself caught by Tong Yi, leaving him utterly flustered. How astonishingly inappropriate the timing is. After the sermon concluded last time, he hurried back to the East Sea, only to discover that everything had vanished. Not only was the previously refined Mount Fangzhong gone, but also the mystical realms of Penglai and Yingzhou had mysteriously disappeared. The entire maritime expanse lay barren. Were it not for the spatial coordinates he had previously inscribed, he might have thought he had taken a wrong turn. The East King, upon realizing this, had bled profusely and erupted with fury, embarking on a relentless search both in the heavens and the depths of the sea. He even descended to the Dragon Palace, demanding answers as to whether the Dragon Clan had been involved. The entire palace nearly succumbed to his wrath before the elder of the Dragon Clan emerged, sensing the gravity of the situation, prompting him to flee immediately. For the subsequent 3 millennia, he had tirelessly searched and divined, endeavoring to uncover the whereabouts of the 3 immortal islands. Yet, it was painfully evident that his efforts bore no fruit. Now, the East King's vexation was beyond words. He had just witnessed the Hunyuan Taoist being humiliated under the hand of a saint, which had slightly lifted his spirits. However, he did not anticipate being interrupted by the Hunyuan Taoist again, who conveniently inquired about the banquet arrangements. A banquet, indeed, with the immortal islands lost. He had no inclination to celebrate. Yet, the words had already escaped his lips, and this was the sole opportunity to curry favor with the disciple of a saint. The East King urged himself to remain optimistic, reminding himself that deepening his connections with the saint's disciple could lead to untold blessings in the future. A multitude of tangled thoughts raced through the East King's mind in an instant, and he promptly raised his head, forcing a rather strained smile, and declaring, "It is indeed my honor that Dao brother has agreed to attend. The banquet will certainly proceed as planned." Tong Yi regarded the East King's forced smile with a sense of dismay that evaporated almost instantly. He felt no remorse for this duplicitous individual. Even the heavenly Tao had rewarded him for seizing the immortal islands, highlighting the East King's despicable nature. Nevertheless, Tong Yi was intrigued. He wondered from where the East King had acquired the severed finger and the secret arts of the demonic sect. After the sermon, he could trace the East King's actions and perhaps secure a substantial boon of merit. Poverty gnawed at him. The extensive use of rare treasures had depleted his resources, and the subsequent 8 transformations required even more of these invaluable materials for body refinement. Tong Yi was truly weary of his financial constraints. Very well. Let us proceed into the hall, he gestured, allowing the East King to lead the way. The East King was all too eager, turning promptly and whisking the West Queen into the purple cloud hall. Meanwhile, Tong Yi raised his hand and pulled another individual back, his face awash with concern. Alas, Dao friend, you appear wounded. Could it be that you were injured by the blast from Dao friend Mingyi during the last treasure acquisition and have yet to recover? At that moment, the Zhuan-Ti Taoist nearly unleashed a stream of curses. He had clearly evaded the attack. Why was he still being detained? How did the Hunyuan Taoist discern the extent of my injuries? I had taken great pains to conceal them, and even others had failed to notice. Yet he not only uncovered my condition, but also dared to vocalize it. Is he unaware of the many adversaries I possess, all poised to exact their vengeance upon me in my moment of weakness? How perplexing it is that he has never once offered me a smile in the past, yet now feigns concern for my well-being. Around us, the mighty beings who were eager to enter the grand hall have slowed their pace, pricking up their ears. What have they heard? A treasure hunt? 3,000 years ago, a treasure hunt. How infuriating that after 3 millennia, a relic has emerged. And its quality must surely be extraordinary. Otherwise, the Hades River and the Zhuan-Ti would not have clashed so fiercely. Most importantly, Zhuan-Ti has sustained injuries? This is fortuitous. Well done, Hades River. Surely, my friend jesteth, Zhuan-Ti replied, feeling the weight of the scrutinizing gazes surrounding him. I am unscathed, and I appreciate your concern. With that, he disregarded all notions of etiquette, abruptly shaking off Tong Yi's hand and pushing his way into the throng gathered at the entrance. In the blink of an eye, he vanished into the grand hall. Among the crowd surging into the hall was a youth clad in crimson garments, whose appearance was strikingly uncanny. It was none other than the ancestor of the Hades River. Though he was audacious and unafraid of losing another incarnation, he did not wish to forfeit the opportunity of the third sermon. Yet, he could not help but silently curse Tong Yi for having wasted so much time in pursuit, only to return empty-handed after all these years. It had been 3,000 years, and he still clung to that trivial grievance. As the two principal figures entered the grand hall, the once congested entrance became clear again. After 2 attempts to gather people, Tong Yi's earlier frustration had vanished, and he hummed a cheerful tune as he stepped inside. Soon, the hall was filled to capacity with 3,000 attendees, and a flash of purple light illuminated the Dao platform as the invisible pressure of the sage enveloped the space. The third sermon commenced. The detached voice of Hongjun Daozu resonated through the hall, marking the beginning of the third discourse. In the first millennium, the focus had been on the cultivation of the 3 flowers converging at the crown, the realm of the great Luo Golden Immortal. The second millennium delved into the cultivation of the Hunyuan Golden Immortal, the pre-saint realm. The final millennium would expound upon the path to becoming a Hunyuan Great Luo Golden Immortal. Most present at the Purple Cloud Palace were above the Great Luo Golden Immortal level, rendering the previous 2 discourses akin to a review for them. However, this third sermon was perfectly aligned with their current level of cultivation, and even touched upon realms they had yet to attain. The 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud became unprecedentedly serious. As the venerable Hongjun Daozu commenced his teachings once more, the sacred resonance reverberated, and extraordinary phenomena emerged anew. The purple mist and golden lotus appeared simultaneously. The golden musical notes of the Tao materialized once again, suspended in the air of the grand hall. This time, it was not a mere reformation. The disparity in comprehension was profoundly evident. Those with exceptional insight, such as the 3 pure ones seated upon the 6 great mats, alongside Nuhua, Jin, and Zhuan-Ti, as well as the likes of Xinyuanzi and Fuxi in the second row, exhibited expressions of enlightenment after steadily absorbing a copious amount of Taoist musical notes. Conversely, those with slightly lesser understanding furrowed their brows and sighed intermittently after absorbing a modest quantity of the notes. The least perceptive among them struggled to grasp even a few notes, displaying signs of frustration and agitation. Such circumstances became even more pronounced when Hongjun Daozu began to expound upon the realm of quasi-sainthood. Were it not for the stabilizing influence of the purple mist and golden lotus on their minds, many of the powerful beings would have succumbed to madness at this juncture. By the time Hongjun Daozu addressed the attainment of sainthood, the number of those capable of absorbing the Taoist runes had dwindled significantly. The majority of the powerful beings wore expressions of bewilderment, finding the teachings of the sage to be exceedingly obscure and profound, rendering them dizzy even after a single sentence, let alone the absorption of Taoist musical notes. This exemplified the inevitability of fate. One's innate constitution and comprehension were intrinsically linked. The potential to achieve sainthood had been predetermined the moment they emerged into existence. For the past 3 millennia, Tong Yi had remained steadfast, stabilizing his physical form. Before the other 2 sources of the mixed world demon ape were consumed, he had entirely ceased his pursuit of the celestial path. Furthermore, with the acquisition of the laws of power and the 9 transformations of the profound art, it seemed more appropriate to regard the celestial path as a supplementary endeavor. Fortunately, seated upon the Tao platform, despite his spiritual essence not progressing, the platform continued to assist him in capturing Taoist musical notes, forcibly nourishing his spiritual essence. Remarkably, although his cultivation level remained stagnated at the late stage of Tai, his spiritual essence continued to grow after absorbing the Taoist musical notes. As his spiritual essence expanded, so too did his sea of consciousness and celestial power. While his aura appeared to still belong to the Tai stage, Tong Yi felt that its potency had long surpassed that of Deluo. However, this mattered little to him. His focus remained firmly on the 9 transformations of the profound art. After the 9th transformation shattered, he had barely managed to extract insights before being expelled from the Panga Hall by the remnants of Panga's soul. Thus, during these 3 millennia, He began to absorb the insights of the ninth transformation while also organizing the entire cultivation process of the 9 transformations of the profound art. As time passed, Tong Yi developed a comprehensive understanding of the 9 transformations of the profound art, and his previously distorted impression of this technique was once again refreshed. As its name suggests, the cultivation of this art required 9 rounds of body refinement. Unlike the initial forging of flesh and bone, the process now involves refining the physical form into an ethereal body. Starting from the 2nd transformation, it is imperative to utilize the powers of various profound laws to cleanse and refine the body. The 8th transformation encompasses 8 distinct laws. In addition to the 5 elemental forces of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, there are also the rare laws of time, space, and chaos. The order of refining these laws is not fixed. However, complete success in one law is necessary to proceed to the next. This realization fills Tong Yi with frustration. The arduous task of forging an ethereal body, followed by traversing the vast wilderness, weighs heavily on his mind. The elemental laws of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth are manageable, as chaos is readily available. One can search for elemental treasures across the wilderness, relying on the 6-eared divine perception to uncover heavenly materials and the very essence of the 5 elements. Yet what of time and space? Where might one seek them? Within the river of time? He had only ventured there once when he grasped the law of time. That realm is formless and colorless, always present yet elusive. Clearly, a strategy must be devised to enhance his comprehension of the laws of time and space. Having only just begun to grasp these concepts, the prospect of refining the ethereal body seems daunting. In this moment, he comprehends why the 12 ancestors of the Witch Clan could refine their physical forms to the level of quasi-saints. Each had mastered a singular law. Even 9 transformations would seem trivial in comparison. Should he seek the assistance of the ancestors, allowing them to use their law powers upon him? That would not be difficult. Once they discover the loss of the ancestral blood pillar, they would undoubtedly rush to aid him in refining his body. This thought brings a mix of joy and sorrow to Tong Yi's heart. Moreover, there remains the unknown teleportation stone left by the remnants of Yangmei, which may harbor a sanctuary of spatial laws. Should he investigate? Previously, he worried about encountering other remnants of Yangmei within, given his current strength. What if he were to face another? Last time, the situation was favorable as the opponent dared not act recklessly within the Purple Cloud Palace, granting him an opportunity. What would his current power yield against the remnants of Yangmei? Perhaps he should wait. Heaven and earth are indifferent, treating all beings as mere fodder. The saints are likewise unfeeling, viewing all lives as mere livestock. As the 3rd sermon concludes, Tong Yi remains deep in thought when he suddenly hears Hong Jun's voice. He is momentarily taken aback, lamenting how time seems so utterly valueless. In the blink of an eye, 3,000 years have passed. Were this his previous life, 10 dynasties would have risen and fallen. Saint, please wait. I beseech you to repeat your teachings. I cannot comprehend. Oh, Tao Ancestor, my heart is filled with confusion. I implore your mercy to enlighten us once more. Indeed, Saint, it is too challenging. The content of this sermon is exceedingly difficult to grasp. As the voice of the saint ceases, extraordinary phenomena dissipate. The 3,000 mighty beings awaken, each face etched with anguish as they bow in reverence towards the Tao platform, lamenting their wish for time to extend tenfold or 100-fold. 3,000 years is indeed an exceedingly brief span, almost akin to the fleeting blink of an eye. Many concepts, scarcely grasped, are overshadowed by the realization that the sage has already progressed to discussing matters yet to come. Were the grand melodies of the Tao still resonating within the hall, they could leisurely reflect upon the teachings thereafter. Alas, now all extraordinary phenomena have vanished, leaving them with no recourse but to beseech the sage to continue imparting wisdom. Yet, in response to the entreaties of the 3,000 guests, Hong Jun Daozu gently shook his head, his voice echoing through the hall devoid of discernible emotion. The extent to which one comprehends is predetermined. If you fail to grasp it, no matter how many times I speak, it remains unchanged. Upon concluding, he disregarded the fervent pleas of the 3,000 guests and shifted his discourse, proclaiming with a resounding voice, I have delivered teachings for 9,000 years on 3 occasions. Now the time has come, and my merits are complete. If you hold any confusion, you may pose a question, 1 question per person. Once all inquiries have been made, I shall accept disciples, establishing the orthodox path of the Xianmen, dedicated to disseminating the Tao to all sentient beings. At the utterance of these words, an oppressive silence enveloped the great hall. The 3,000 Zishao guests, who but a moment ago had been pleading, now stared wide-eyed in astonishment. In an instant, expressions of exuberance illuminated their faces. The 3,000 mighty beings were visibly ecstatic, their bodies trembling with excitement, fists clenched tightly. Were it not for the presence of the sage, they might have erupted into cheers. Their fervor was understandable. While they had contemplated the possibility of receiving an opportunity from the sage post-lecture, they had never anticipated that he would establish the Xianmin and accept disciples. This signified that every individual present had the chance to become a disciple of the sage, to attain a status akin to that of the Hanyuan Taoist. Consider the Hanyuan Taoist seated upon the podium. The veneration and admiration he enjoys from numerous mighty beings stem solely from his position as a disciple of the sage. And now, they too had the opportunity to attain such a prestigious identity. On the podium, Tong Yi, who had been privy to this development, maintained an expression of calm. He surveyed the assembly below, reflecting on the rapid transformation of the mighty beings' countenances, from desperate plea